President. Good morning, members, officials. This Council resumes the second reading debate on the Appropriation Bill 2026. Members who would like to speak, if you haven't yet pressed the button to request to speak, please do so as soon as possible. Mr. Albert Chuang. Thank you, President. This year marks the start of the 15th Five-Year Plan. Our country expressly supports Hong Kong's integration into the national development, consolidating the international financial center, aviation center, shipping center, and so on. It also supports Hong Kong's development into an international high-end talent hub. The situation and conflicts in the Middle East are clouded in uncertainty. Hong Kong needs to seize the opportunities to establish a stronger foothold and to drive economic development. In the budget this year, the theme is driving high-quality, inclusive growth with innovation and finance. The focus is having a fiscal surplus of $2.9 billion. It is the first in 4 years. No doubt, this is a strong boost to the arm. Stamp duties in the liquidity market and the increase in the bond issuance scale, all these contribute to the current fiscal position. This shows amid the complex and volatile global environment, Hong Kong's economy remains robust. Hong Kong continues to improve the enhanced fiscal consolidated program. We continue to strictly control government expenditure supplemented by increasing revenue. We continue to cut annual expenditure by 2% every year, resulting in a reduction of a total of $23.4 billion. Regarding the surplus of the exchange fund, we continue to record surplus, and the Hong Kong government continues to transfer the surplus to the public coffers amounting to $202.8 billion, and the borrowing ceiling is suggested to be increased to $900 billion. I'm glad to see that the government has adopted my suggestion, as well as the suggestion on issuing more bonds. This will ensure the orderly development and implementation of different projects in the Northern Metropolis. However, the government needs to adhere to the principle of Article 107 of the Basic Law. That is, the government needs to keep expenditure within the limits of revenues. The government needs to make sure that the funds will be used to support development instead of paying the daily expenses or expenditure of the government. Otherwise, the interest expenditure will bring a lot of different problems. The first, due to the registration of EVs as well as the one-for-one replacement scheme came to an end on the 31st of March. Members of the public could no longer benefit from the policy after April or after March. I suggest the orderly implementation of the policy. The current policy is a one-size-fits-all approach, and the sudden implementation of this policy will affect the government's vision of environmental protection. I hope that the government will continue to review this policy in the future. President, I'm going to make policy suggestions on different fronts. I will explore how Hong Kong can implement fiscal policies taking into account local circumstances. SMEs are the pillars of the local economy. They are the key to developing new quality productive forces. The government has injected a total of $200 million into the BUD fund and to drive AI application. The direction is correct. However, in relation to targets and momentum, there is still room for improvement. Some SMEs told me the current ratio stands at 1:3. This has exerted a burden on their startup capital and has also retarded the development of emerging markets. That's why I propose resuming the 1-to-1 subsidy ratio in order to ease the cash flow of SMEs. Geographical limitations should also be uplifted for SMEs. E-commerce should also be enhanced. We need to support the development of local brands so that the BUD Fund will be in a better position to tide over local SMEs alongside opening up new markets. In relation to seeking changes, the Hong Kong government should propose to the Central People's Government on the orderly flow of cash from Hong Kong to the Chinese mainland so that the capital can be converted into development momentum. We can achieve complementarity as a result. Hong Kong needs to have a stable inflow of capital in the long run, and this is a win-win situation. The government should proactively divert capital into the liquidity market, the equity market. This will increase the tax revenue for Hong Kong, and this will also benefit the local physical economy. On talent development, I propose to continue to enhance the CEF and to increase the limit to $30,000. The 10-year mechanism should also be reinstated in order to promote lifelong learning. There should also be a policy to employ first, followed by training. This will ease the manpower crunch in Hong Kong. The study in Hong Kong branch should also be extended to the senior secondary school stage. It should also tie in with the Northern Metropolis University town. Family members of senior secondary school students should be given visas. This way, we can attract high-quality families to settle down in Hong Kong. We must not remain in our current position. We need to make breakthroughs. In the financial budget this year, AI application, international finance from Northern Metropolis, these dovetail with the strategic development of our nation. It adopts a forward-looking vision. It also observes fiscal balance, fiscal discipline. At present, the global political and economic landscape is complex and volatile. We must roll out targeted, flexible measures to help enterprises in Hong Kong to pursue further development. We should also invest in our future and to groom more talent to help Hong Kong to further develop in the future. I so submit. Thank you.
Mr. Kenneth Fok, President, on behalf of 17 members of the G19, I speak in support of the Appropriation Bill 2026 and its second and third reading. This budget aligns with the country's strategy, reforms the existing way of thinking, and promotes development of the industries of Hong Kong. It also provides economic incentives to citizens. It deserves our support. On aligning with the country's strategy, we need to consolidate and leverage on our advantages to serve the country's development. The National 15 Five-Year Plan proposes for Hong Kong 10 centers positioning. Many of the professional areas are the sectors represented by G19, and many of our suggestions have been taken on board. I would like to thank the government for this. It has now become a strategic initiative. The budget proposes strong financial support, including the issuance of bonds to support the development of Northern Metropolis. We also have 10 billion fund injection for this purpose. But money alone is not enough. We need to enhance efforts to attract enterprises and investment. We also need to provide facilitation measures for the Hetal Corporation. So make sure we work with the Shenzhen Park. This will help enhance the attractiveness of Hetal Corporation Zone and the Northern Metropolis. On innovative thinking, I can see from the budget the government practices an industry-led approach, and the government is playing the role of a facilitator and planner instead of what the government did before, just acting as a regulator and practicing a non-interventionist approach. It really shows the government's commitment in institutional reforms. It also shows how important it is to practice an executive-led approach. On institution, as I said earlier, just paying people isn't enough. It is important to ensure efficiency. The National 15 Five-Year Plan talks about enhancing efficiency of the government. We now need to look at how much we're investing and how much we get in output. During the Special Finance Committee sessions, we have observed many instances. Let me be bold here. We have seen the government's projects are very expensive and the procedures are very complex. You have to go through each and every department. All of these incur costs. Recently, the LegCo passed many project funding proposals, including those for technology, digitalization of operations of the government. This is obviously a trend, but there are some departmental officers that told me in private, in the end, with digitalization, some officers in the front line have to do more because they have to deal with both systems. I hope this is just a transitional period, but not a general phenomenon. I raised a question during the Special Finance Committee sessions to ask if we can reduce manpower with the use of technology. There is no direct reply from the government. And the government basically said officers have been deployed to other projects. I think it is hard for members to gauge how efficient we are with digitalization. I hope the government notes this situation. On institutional reforms, I note the government has done much. It is not easy, and due to the government's fiscal position, we have to make cuts to budgets. I just hope the government can still enhance efficiency while doing this. On livelihood policy and taxation, the Financial Secretary took on board G19's suggestion. We have, in the past 10 years, not adjusted the allowances for families. I believe with the tax increases in tax allowances, it can benefit many of the middle class and those who are working. We do not have many economic incentives specifically relating to taxation this year, but as many members said, we face great uncertainties at this time. We also need to issue bonds. We have $15.8 billion in relief measures. I think that is already adequate. We have conflicts in the Middle East. It is very unpredictable. The high oil prices have caused an impact on industries, but I also understand some capital has come to Hong Kong. This may bring about opportunities. This is what happened after the announcement of the budget. I urge the government to review the situation and make adjustments if necessary to the incentives proposed in the budget. Today is a day for reading for all, and we have recently debated a motion on promoting reading for all. I think we can have a comprehensive review of the positioning and services of public libraries to make sure we make good use of the resources and facilities. We have, under the LCSD, more than 80 fixed and mobile libraries, and right now, it costs $1.57 billion to operate the library services. Right now, people don't necessarily go to libraries to read or borrow books. I think with the new libraries, we cannot just rely on the existing design and operational models. We need to make good use of technology to encourage citizens to read. And we can perhaps hold more cultural activities in libraries, perhaps even expose, that can promote cultural and arts industries. We can refer to the facilities in the Shanghai Library to really learn from their experience on sports. We will have a $1.2 billion injection into the fund for sports, and this has received great support from the sector. After the Asian Games, the government has pledged to review the team sports development of Hong Kong, and we will definitely work with the government on this. Kai Tak Sports Park was commissioned about a year ago. We can see the Kai Tak Sports Park doing well now. Many NSAs, National Sports Associations, want to make use of the facilities of the sports park. I think the Kai Tak Sports Park should accommodate different sports activities. There have been reports that scrutinize the KPIs of a sports park on sports events. It seems that the sports park is lagging behind. The Bureau says they would review the KPI requirements. I do not object to a review of the KPIs, but we should adhere to the vision of the Kai Tak Sports Park. We should be providing sports-oriented facilities. We should not only focus on hosting profitable events. The Kai Tak Sports Park has the social responsibility to promote sports events with great potential. The Rugby Sevens have been held for 15 years. It started with a small-scale event of the Football Association. So it took 50 years to nurture this brand. I hope the government and the park and the sports sector can work together closely in future so as to provide room for growth for the sports sector of Hong Kong. On different occasions, I said the TV stations in Hong Kong are faced with great challenges. Due to time constraints, I will not repeat my views here. The overarching policy of the government should be that they provide support to the TV stations to help them grow and help them go global to promote the Chinese culture. Unfortunately, right now, many TV stations try to cut costs by reducing manpower and purchasing programs from other program providers rather than manufacture or making their own programs. I think this is deviating from what is said in the National 15 Five-Year Plan that we should develop into a East meets West Cultural Exchange Center. We should perhaps also review the licensing regime to achieve a better result. I also submit speaking in support of the Appropriation Bill 2026. Mr. Chen Pui Kong. Thank you, President. I would like to speak on the bill, Appropriation Bill 2026. When I participated in the election forum last year, I said citizens do not have high hopes for society. They just want to live in peace and they have their needs covered in food, living, commute, just the basic needs. On food, we are at a critical juncture of structural transformation. Latest unemployment rate is 3.9%. It is the same as before. But we should not just look at the figures. We have to go beyond that and see the reality. We have the underemployment rate at 1.7%, and in retail, F&B, and sectors related to livelihood, the situation is even worse. Many grassroots workers are underemployed and they do not earn enough in income. We need to really see this as a warning sign. I'm glad the government is enhancing enforcement on protection of labor interests. 3 employers that have breached the rules in engaging imported labor have been sanctioned. They have not accorded priority to locals in recruitment. I have 3 suggestions on this. For the occupations that have a higher unemployment rate, we should suspend the importation of labor. We should have also job fairs cover more occupations. We should have Labor Department officers on site to make sure there's no bogus recruitment. We should also make sure there is stepped up enforcement to make sure local recruitment is prioritized. And with the continuous contract requirement laws coming into effect, I have heard many workers say of course, the intent of the law is to provide more comprehensive protection for part-time workers, but employers try to circumvent this to lower the number of working hours to below 68 hours for every 4 weeks for part-time workers to make workers be out to be self-employed workers. This has really deviated from the vision of the new laws. It has also caused a significant impact on grassroots workers. We need to have specific inspections for cleansing F&B and other industries that hire mostly grassroots workers. If we identify loopholes, we need to have a regular review mechanism to make sure we plug these loopholes. Next, on housing. On 1st of April, the government has adjusted upwards the limits for income and assets for public rental housing applications. I think there is room for further relaxation, as public rental housing is the option for grassroots households that have pressing housing needs. We should try to meet the demand. For public rental housing households that have already been living in public rental housing, the administration waived the rental concessions, and some who have been paying more have to pay even more. It will really impede the incentives of public rental housing households to move upwards. It can also cause disputes among families because those with higher incomes often have higher income family members. I suggest the administration adjust upwards the income limit for public rental housing for higher rents. The government said this year they will explore the relaunch of the sale of public rental housing units. I hope that this can be expedited so that we can meet the needs of PRH households. It will allow these households to purchase their own property at affordable prices. It can really help them achieve home ownership. For them to truly take root in Hong Kong, it will also mean less subsidies paid by the government. I urge the government to expedite the undertaking of such studies, and they should probably start with Kowloon East, where there is great demand for grassroots housing. Now, we want to also make sure to facilitate commute. In Kowloon East, the government has taken on board many suggestions on transportation improvement works. First of all, on Central Kowloon Bypass Yau Ma Tei section, it has been commissioned. It has greatly alleviated pressure on Kowloon West to Kowloon East Trunk Road. I hope that the whole road can be commissioned this year. The green and smart mass transit systems are also the preparations of which are underway. I very much appreciate that, and I'm glad that the government has taken on board the suggestion to improve the transportation network in Kowloon East. The government said they would also study the proposal to have a cross-harbor bridge on top of Kluntong Typhoon Shelter to connect to the Kai Tak area. I support this. I have two suggestions. For the green and smart mass transit system in Kai Tak, the proposal has been approved. I suggest that the administration commence studies to see if it can be extended to Kluntong Harbourfront as well as the Yaotong area. Kluntong MTR station is one of the busiest MTR stations. During peak hours, the platforms are packed. I suggest the government work with the URA and the MTR Corporation with the redevelopment of Yumen Square. They can perhaps look into expanding the Kuntong MTR station and do comprehensive assessments on the increased flow of people so as to plan it in advance. We also need to make sure we treat citizens' illnesses. Health is the most important component of happiness of people. Without good health, they can't do anything else. With the medical fee reforms, I have heard many citizens say there is a great spike in medical costs. This is key to the interests of people, especially for the grassroots. For those with chronic illnesses, the medical fees have become a heavy burden. I suggest there should be a regular review of the medical fee reforms to gauge the actual impact on citizens as well as the healthcare system. I hope that we can relax the concession mechanism so that those age 65 or above can waive their medical fees, and there should be appropriate adjustments if necessary to make sure we take care of the underprivileged groups to make sure they get the treatment they need. I also suggest the administration increase the number of service quotas in daytime and nighttime for outpatient services so that citizens can easily make calls or make an appointment through apps. As a member serving the Kowloon East constituency, I have made many suggestions about Kowloon East to the government, and I'm glad the government has taken on board many of my suggestions. I speak in support of the bill, and I will continue to monitor the government's use of public money and implementation of measures so that citizens can truly benefit. They will have food, they will have good housing, they can have good commute, and their illnesses can be treated, and we'll have a good Kowloon East in Hong Kong.
Mr. Charles Siu Chung, President. Last year, the annual GDP growth rate was 3.5%. The consecutive third year of increase. Employees also share the benefit. Last year, the average median income for employee has increased by 4.6% year-on-year. Under the tight fiscal position, the government still offered a series of alleviation measures which benefited people's life. However, this year's global geopolitical tension is tense, bringing a lot of uncertainties for local economy, including the Middle Eastern war, which has broken out since middle of the month. It has caused a surge in fuel costs and also added burden on local businesses. Now, the government has been decisive in offering subsidies for diesel fuel. This is a timely move. Exactly because of the uncertainties in external environments, that's why we need to find new growth points internally. Now, the national development has been robust. It has provided a strong momentum for Hong Kong's development. This is the starting year of the 15th Five-Year Plan. We need to integrate better into the national development blueprints and contribute to the Bay Area's development. Now, this year's budget has announced a series of measures to enhance our industry layout, consolidating our positions as international financial and logistic hubs, as well as accelerating the development of Hong Kong as a highland for high-quality talents as well as I&T hub. I support this. In terms of revenue and expenditure, the government has implemented the enhanced fiscal consolidation program. Now, in last year, the estimated deficit of some $60 billion has been turned into some $60 billion of surplus. We have reversed the situation as sooner than expected. Now, this year, the government plans to slash some 4,000 civil service jobs. It will help to cut costs further. However, among the post cuts, more than half of them are junior post. This is worrying. And also, the amount of outsourced contracts have reduced, adding to the burden of other civil servants. Now, despite the government is embracing technology, it has not brought about substantial changes in terms of efficiency enhancement. So I suggest allocating $100 million to introduce state-of-the-art technologies to speed up the pace of digitalization in terms of governance. So while enhancing the quality of civil services, we can also reduce the burden on the existing establishment. Now, I support the government's announcements that the 2026 civil service pay adjustment will be conducted according to the established mechanism. Now, previously, for 3 consecutive years, we have experienced pay freeze as well as lower than expected pay increase. Now, I hope that this year's pay increase will be reasonable. Now, despite the Wangfuk Court fire incident revealing some insufficiencies of civil service, some say that civil servants do not deserve a pay rise, but I think the majority of the civil service should be recognized for their well performance. For individual poor performers, there is performance assessment mechanism as well as disciplinary system to deal with that. Now, in terms of employment, the budget proposed to upgrade the ERB to upskill Hong Kong, and there will be more technology-based courses available. I fully support the idea. However, the positioning of the ERB is to equip employees to transform themselves and equip themselves for the changing needs of society. Now, we have to remember this original intent. After the upgrade, if there are financial pressure on the ERB or the Upskill Hong Kong, the government can consider increasing the amount of fee paid by employers to import labor. The $4,000 fee has not been increased for many years already. So besides enhancing manpower supply, we have to protect local jobs. Now, for unemployment rate, it hovers around 3.8% to 3.9%, among which catering sector as well as construction industry sector's unemployment rate are significantly higher than the overall level. The pressing task is to help the unemployed to return to the job market. Studies should be conducted to set a cap on the amounts of labor imported for certain job types. Now, concerning the importation of manpower for junior cooks and waiters, the government has imposed more stringent conditions, and the number of labor imported for these 2 jobs have decreased. We can do the same for other jobs which require a large number of imported labor. Now, for the grassroots, they live hand to table. So if they are unemployed, they will fall into the security net, and that will add to the government's burden. Supplementary importation of labor should be a secondary measure. The primary goal is to protect local employment by training up local employees. Now, concerning the re-employment allowance scheme, the funding allocation will be increased to $220 million. Now, I think we can further enhance the scheme and regularize the program. On the other hand, we can extend the scope of the coverage of this allowance scheme. Now, the labor participation rate, the age group with highest rate is the age group 30 and 39. For women, there is a significant trend of decrease in labor participation rates for women aged between 35 and 39. So maybe we can consider lowering the age threshold of the scheme to below 35, so that those employees who left the job market for personal reasons on a temporary basis can return to the job market. Now, there are 8,000 participants who are already obtaining the second tranche subsidies, the government should conduct a follow-up study on the employment situation of these participation. The government can also launch a third or fourth tranche of re-employment allowance so as to keep them in the job market. Now, finally, I welcome the budget's commitment in promoting professional development as well as technological adoption, including a $10 billion injection into the construction industry I&T fund. This will give incentive for construction sites to adopt smart management systems. However, besides certain mandatory programs, the use of smart site management system still need to be enhanced for the majority of the construction sites. Now, even with the government's incentive schemes, if we still see a lot of construction industry accidents, then we need to consider enhancing the measures. For example, when the LWB considers enhancing the code of practice, they should consider adding more conditions for using technological equipment. And besides, warning system for cranes, there should be other safety measures as well. I support the Appropriation Bill 2026. Ms. Julia Lau. President, I speak in support of the Appropriation Bill 2026. The year 2026 is the starting year of the country's 15th five-year plan. The budgets proactively align with the 15th five-year plan and propose to develop the Northern Metropolis rapidly. It shows the government's commitment to enhance Hong Kong's competitiveness. Now, the landscape and surveying sector supports this. This will inject new impetus into Hong Kong's development. There are three major areas that I'm concerned with. First of all, subsidizing and enhancing the governance capability of the civil service. Now, the Wangful Court file has revealed many deficiencies in governance. Now, for emergencies, the existing establishment seems to be unable to cope. Now, the government's efforts to cut civil service expenditure is commendable. Now, some 72 civil servants in relation to my sector has been reduced, including 12 landscapers and 43 surveyors. Now, we need to intervene into the bidding process as soon as possible. Now, there are some retired civil servants who are engaged to help the owners' corporations. They are experienced, and we should harness the power to help the owners' corporations. Now, there are 45,000 private buildings in Hong Kong, and among them, 29,000 of them are aged 30 years above. Now, whether it is building maintenance or emergency maintenance, professional expertise is a valuable asset. Now, according to the Secretary, on the premise of the civil service expenditure cut of 2%, if it is necessary to hire more civil servants, the Secretary will still consider it. So I hope that's true. Now, the government has upgraded the tier of major building management program from Tier 2 to Tier 1, and independent professional has to be hired for each project. Now, every year, the Housing Authority issues some 5,000 MPIs, and there are only 1,400 recognized persons. So we need to involve the professionals at a very early stage. Now, the ICU should engage professionals to conduct investigation and enforcement action. We should involve property management companies more in building management and building maintenance projects. We have to ensure that the maintenance programs are clean and fair. Now, second, we need to provide more business opportunities for the construction industry. Now, faced with structural changes in human resources, the government has to ensure that there is sufficient supply of professionals. The government should also create job opportunities for the sector. The Northern Metropolis is the major growth engine in the future, and we are going to enter the peak period of construction. There has to be sufficient professional manpower within the civil service to take forward the projects, to ensure the quality of the public works projects and reasonable use of public funding. They can also lead the private sector to engage in new quality productive forces. Now, with the continuously dwindling private market, it is affecting the operation of companies, large and small. There is underwhelming businesses for the professionals. Now, this budget has provided many opportunities for young professionals. Now, we hope that the government can allocate funding to engage in characteristic projects for each district. For example, revitalizing building facades and also creating characteristic streetscape. Now, these are valuable. This will give the business a valuable breathing space while enhancing the living standard of the residents in the areas. Now, in taking forward these projects, the government should adopt the percentage for arts policy. Now, in the 1970s, Portland and Chicago in the US have legislated to set aside a certain percentage of the public funding in public works projects as public arts fund. Now, in Shanghai, the eastern extension of the Shanghai Library has also included art as part of its vision. Now, we should establish a building art fund to incorporate the elements of art into public works projects and upgrade our infrastructure into cultural assets. We should organize a architectural art festival. 3. Urban-rural integration and deepening conservation efforts. Now, in dealing with the dilemma between development and conservation, President Xi mentioned that green mountains and lush water are valuable assets. Now, according to the 15th Five-Year Plan, by embracing this principle, the central government has set the goal to achieve carbon neutrality and protect the ecological civilization. The government will be determined to establish a strong ecological barrier and enhance the green development momentum. Now, with the upcoming development projects in the Northern Metropolis, we have to prioritize the use of smart and green building materials. Now, the government should hire independent construction materials surveyors to make sure that there is stringent gatekeeping for environmental issues. Now, besides large-scale infrastructure, as well as R&T land developments, which will bring about great opportunities for our sector, the government should remove red tape. For example, relaxing the law to allow rural homes to be turned into hostels. Now, $200 million have been injected into the Urban Rural Integration Fund. Now, during the consultation process, the government should consult the trade on how to speed up the development pace while protecting the environment. Now, the Northern Metropolis will bring about development opportunities, large and small. This is where the landscaping and surveying sector can contribute. For example, we can contribute to enhancing the tourism appeal of Northern Metropolis. Now, the government should also launch dedicated programs through short-term tenancies to allow young architects to use the imagination to develop attractive cultural and tourism attractions. We can also introduce composite development factors like marine tourism as well as other things. We should make full use of the blue and green resources, for example, Yan Chao Tong, Tongping Chao, and Shuttlecock. This shows that the government is embracing the idea of balancing development and conservation. And we need the environment to thrive for our economy to go strong. Now, our sector's vitality is important in leading the city forward. I hope the government would consider my suggestion seriously. So the public funding is not only spent on mega-scale projects, but also nurturing the birth of innovative ideas by my sector. Only by collaborating together can we overcome challenges and build a more beautiful and livable Hong Kong. I support the Appropriation Bill 2026.
李廣宇議員。
主席，今
Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, thank you, President. This budget proposes to drive high-quality inclusive growth with innovation and finance. The direction is commendable. This ties in with the strategic development of our country on driving AI and new quality productive forces. I believe that the budget should really respond to the calls of wage earners in Hong Kong as well as other members of the public. The success of AI shouldn't be just about injections. It also has to do with the implementation of different policies. Can they be implemented pragmatically? Can they bring about job opportunities? Can they enhance the capability of wage earners in Hong Kong? We need to allow employees and workers in Hong Kong to catch up with the transformation of the economy. We also need to let young people in Hong Kong feel that they are moving upwards. I'd like to focus on three main points. One, upskilling employees, AI used by the administration as well as young people's upward mobility. Quite a lot of studies show that the impact of AI is increasingly seen. About 55% of the enterprises have seen changes in job positions, especially when it comes to junior positions. There are more and more such posts being cut. For those who have a good understanding and mastery of AI, they have a massive paycheck increase. And the key is whether employees can equip themselves and whether enterprises can provide sufficient training and assistance to the middle-aged and workers in the SMEs. Transformations is difficult in the sense that change management is difficult. Even when there is new software, there may not be sufficient resources to train their staff. In this case, even if there is technology, staff members do not know how to put them to good use. Therefore, when it comes to related subsidy projects, there should be clear guidelines and training arrangements. We need to encourage enterprises to introduce new software and technologies. At the same time, sufficient resources should also be provided to staff members so that technologies could be harnessed well. The budget proposes to enhance the functions of the Employees Retraining Board. I am on the board of the ERB. What I'm concerned about is not how many courses have been created, but my concern is whether the courses can really meet the demand in the community. The ERB is proposed to be upgraded to the Upskills Hong Kong, which is a training-based platform, and the next stage is to design good courses so that the skills can be certified. We also need to associate more closely the job positions with the courses provided by the Upskills Hong Kong. There should be more collaboration between professional associations as well as the Upskills Hong Kong. What matters to wage earners is not how glamorous the title of programs are, but whether they can put what they have learned into practice so that they can change jobs, they can have pay rises after completion of the program. The courses need to be pragmatic for the ERB to be really able to help employees. We need to adopt a people-centric approach. Training and certification requirements need to be set out clearly in the subsidy schemes so that employees in Hong Kong can share the fruits of INT in Hong Kong. We should also drive data and AI transformation. It's not just about system upgrading. It's also about using a data-based approach instead of an experience-based approach. And the budget proposes to set up the AI Plus and Industrial Development Strategy Committee, and 100 million is proposed to be allocated to the new working group. The Civil Service College will also work with the DPO to provide AI training. And the Labor Department is planning to use AI interactive employment services to provide matching services. In 2027, in the middle of 2027, services will be provided. I also suggest that the government should use big data. We need to target vacancies with fewer applicants. We need to identify the gaps between the jobs and the requirements of employers. If done well, AI isn't just about helping people to look for jobs. It can also help us to identify the mismatch in the community. Training, suggestions, transformation, directions, these can be provided. Then jobs will proactively look for suitable people instead of people looking for jobs. Frontline workers need to learn to use AI to improve their administrative services, whereas for the middle management, they need to use data tools to overhaul and upgrade their processes to enhance efficiency. The senior management need to learn to use AI for better governance and risk management. Then, the $100 million allocated to the fund will be used well. This is exactly how process and re-engineering can be conducted. If the government can help the public to feel the positive impact of AI, this is actually more effective than any slogans. My next area of concern is young people. INT supports R&D. The budget talks a lot about these areas. Resources should not be tilted just towards those with a lot of means and educational qualifications. We need to help VPAS students as well as high school graduates as well. The Education Bureau set aside the higher secondary education as a separate portfolio. $5.66 billion have been set aside for this policy portfolio. I do think we need to emphasize VPAT. To young people, what matters is not really about whether they can be admitted to the university or whether they can be a doctoral degree holder. It's about whether they can get a job upon graduation. Schools, enterprises, social network, we need to link them to the Northern Metropolis University town. We need to provide teenagers with different starting point with AI skills, digital skills. Training of this sort should be provided to students. The aim is to help them prior to entering the workforce, identify clear career path. Especially in the Hetao area as well as the NM, there will be plenty of AI or INT opportunities. We need to combine the forces of different sectors such as the academia, enterprises, and so on. We need to provide internship opportunities for students. This network can assist in the development of enterprises, and this can also help young people to get a job. We shouldn't just take into account the number of interns. We also need to track the number of graduates successfully getting a job, so that they will be able to stay in an industry in the long term to continue to work. We have a good starting point. The direction is commendable, but then we need to provide training so that young people will have hopes, and for employees, they will also see hopes when they have sufficient training, so that AI can help improve services and help them expand their capacity. We need to show the impact of the budget, and I will continue to follow up on the policy. Your time is up, Mr. Lee. Mr. Jonathan Leung. Thank you, President. The economy is faring well. There is an increase in tax revenue, and the fiscal situation has turned from red to black. The government is sharing the fruits of economic development with the public. The Liberal Party expresses support for the range of support measures implemented by the government. The government is pouring resources into the development of the NM. This is the long-term vision that we can see from the government. I'd like to speak on measures about the F&B industry. Benefiting from economic growth and the recovery of tourism sector in Hong Kong, there's an improvement in the F&B sector, but this is limited to touristy areas. For other areas, they are subject to the impact of northbound spending by members of the public in Hong Kong. Oil prices have spiked due to the conflict in the Middle East, and this has caused a direct impact on the transport industry, and this is a ripple effect. The F&B sector is also affected owing to transportation costs and logistic costs. Food materials continue to increase. Fuel charges are on the rise, and this has also led to an increase in the prices of food as a result. The government is providing $1.8 billion when it comes to diesel in order to ease the cost pressure on the part of local enterprises. I hope that this will be implemented as possible. The government should keep a close watch on oil companies in order to curb the surging costs of oil or fuel in Hong Kong. Our neighboring cities are seeing keener competition. The F&B sector can only choose to absorb the increase in fuel or oil instead of passing the burden to members of the public. Many people in Hong Kong are going north for spending. Even with an increase in the number of inbound visitors, it's not sufficient to compensate the loss of the local restaurants. In the Easter holiday, there were 2 million visitors. We need to provide more support. Different concessions are provided. The F&B sector is in a dire strait. We hope that the government will launch more relief measures, such as a range of measures for the F&B sector implemented by the budget last year, including license cost waivers, as well as the rental, the rents of the Housing Society and Housing Authority. We need to give the industry a breathing space. We have a mega events economy. Last year, a total of $49 million came to Hong Kong, up by 12%. Art Basel, Art Central, and the Rugby Sevens, which were conducted recently, have brought hundreds of thousands of visitors to Hong Kong. This has driven spending in the retail sector, the hotel sector, as well as the F&B sector. In order to benefit more sectors, we need to further develop the initiative of the capital of mega events in Hong Kong. We need to encourage members of the public to stay in Hong Kong to make spending. We also need to attract visitors to spend overnight in Hong Kong. We need to give visitors more choices. We need to ease congestion in touristy areas, and this will drive the coordinated development of different areas in Hong Kong. Earlier this year, the Tourism Board worked with the CAS to implement an activity to provide food of Hong Kong characters across the city. I suggest this can be continued to be implemented in off-peak season in Hong Kong in order to drive more visitors to Hong Kong. We can also work with other cities in the GBA. This will further expand our source of customers. We thank the Labor Department for relaxing the requirement when it comes to the supplementary labor scheme. The 2-year contracts are drawing to an end. It's about the time for renewal of the contracts. The unemployment rate is standing at 3.8%. A lot of companies are still facing difficulties in recruitment. Take kitchen staff as an example. They have long working hours, and that's why young people are not willing to join the industry. In the Labor Department recruitment fairs, 2,000 jobs, but only 200 people or so were offered jobs, and only single-digit figure employees and workers have decided to take up the jobs. Aging population, declining birth rates, these are what we are facing, and we can only expect a drop in the number of workers in Hong Kong. The Liberal Party hopes that the government will review labor importation policies. We need to review the median wages of employees and the levy of 9,600 for imported workers. We shouldn't worsen the burden on local companies. Many food items in Hong Kong are very popular among people in the mainland. There should be rigorous quality control, and this will enhance the confidence of Hong Kong people in these products. As for food control, there used to be very rigorous regulation. Now that we have different agreements which have reduced significantly the time for food to be approved. I hope that more types of food will be covered. Regarding the waiver of certificates under the CFS, the Liberal Party supports it. We hope that this will further lower the cost of local restaurants, and this will also help Hong Kong brand food to be imported into the Chinese mainland market. In October 2024, the Tourism Development Blueprint 2.0 was published. Food items were one of the highlights. However, the F&B sector is facing pressure on costs, manpower, and so on. There is constant pressure on surging costs. We need to make good use of technologies and streamline procedures. We also need to streamline administrative procedures to approve licenses. We need to improve dining experience. At the same time, we need to drive AI application and digitalization in order to solve the manpower crunch issue in Hong Kong. This will also help us enhance efficiency. The Digital Transformation Support Pilot Scheme should be expanded to cover AI application. It should also cover system overhaul and maintenance. Halal certificated restaurants should be promoted. This is exactly how we can promote Hong Kong to the international market, and this will also consolidate Hong Kong's position as a gourmet capital of the world. This will definitely help with tourism development in Hong Kong. I so submit I support the Appropriation Bill 2026.
信議員。
Mr. Vincent Ching. Thank you, President. I speak in support of the Appropriation Bill 2026. I would also like to thank the Financial Secretary for announcing the budget on 25th of February. This year's budget theme is driving high-quality, inclusive growth with innovation and finance. On public finance, with it improving, the budget has proposed a number of livelihood improvement measures, including increasing the tax allowances for children as well as dependent parents. There are also rates and salaries tax concessions. It has responded to the calls of society. This is the first year of the National 15 Five-Year Plan. We have measures in the budget that actively dovetails with the National 15 Five-Year Plan, including consolidating and enhancing Hong Kong's status as an international finance and trading centers, and to better integrate and serve the country's development. We are challenged by the global economy landscape as well as technological reforms, but we can also seize the different opportunities to have a better future for citizens. The DAB thinks the budget is pragmatic and forward-looking. It has also responded to the suggestions of the DAB before the budget. I would like to cover three area specifically on housing. After the Wangfu Court fire, I thank the administration for actively following up with recovery work, providing comprehensive support to residents and providing housing arrangements for those affected by the fire. The government also said the URA in the second half of this year would improve the smart tender to lower bid rigging risks, and they will also, for Operation Building Bright 2.0, provide new subsidy schemes and have an additional $1 billion for lift modernization subsidy scheme improvements. After Wangfu Court fire, we expect higher standards for building repairs. The government should also enhance regulation. I support relevant measures. We are particularly concerned about what the government is planning for the amendments of the Buildings Ordinance. For those who do not receive an income, they are just receiving rents. It can be quite a heavy burden to have them pay the repair costs. I note in the replies of the administration during the Special Finance Committee sessions, they said they would review the Operation Building Bright 2.0 to have more targeted subsidies for building repair needs and to meet specifically the needs of owners of 3 new buildings or in a worse financial position. I hope with the proposals the government can be comprehensive while enhancing regulation for building maintenance. They should also account for the needs of those who are less privileged. Apart from enhancing the building maintenance regulatory regime, there is still a structural risk with aged buildings. They have high repair costs. They have safety hazards. After all, they will need to be redeveloped at some point. The URA has been doing much work in recent years. They have commenced and completed the Yao Wang study, but after the announcement of findings, it has been 5 years. Apart from the NOLA project, there is no mention of when the 4 other recommendations will be taken forward. The URA also submitted at the end of last year to the government Po district planning blueprint, but we have not seen any progress since. In future, when the government is enhancing efforts on doing more for building maintenance, the URA needs more support from the government, especially in terms of financial support, to make sure we expedite the approval for redevelopment applications. We also need to talk about the subdivided unit issues. With the efforts of the Housing Bureau, we will have, starting from March of this year, a basic housing units regulatory regime. The Bureau also at conducting a study to see how we can provide transitional housing for SCU tenants so that we can really say goodbye to the subdivided units. I appreciate this because it will improve the living environment of those living in inadequate living conditions. Another point that people are really concerned about is welfare measures. We have, as I said earlier, in this year's budget, increase of tax allowances for children-dependent parents. We have also some rates concessions. We have good community service vouchers and other measures benefiting the underprivileged groups. I hope with the government's fiscal position improving, we can have relief measures that cover more groups so that the general public can really reap the fruits of economic recovery. Last week, when we discussed an item about community care fund, we talked about community living room projects. I hope that there can be more of those to help the public. I would like to take this opportunity to convey the views of the public. When I set up street booths earlier, I heard many citizens say seeking medical treatment is very expensive now. The A&E fees has increased from $180 to $400. The drug fees are also more expensive now. For grassroots families or those with chronic illnesses, this is a very heavy burden. In implementation, there is a lack of awareness of the public, so they are very confused. I think if we have a thermometer here, the temperature of citizens is so high right now. The government, I understand, needs to implement reforms, but can we provide more ancillary support to citizens? Can there be better communication with LegCo members so that we can explain better what is happening to the public? On primary healthcare, we need to allocate resources to make sure we have disease prevention. We should also enhance nighttime outpatient services as well as community pharmacies. We've been talking about these for many years, but these are slow to implement compared to the medical fee reforms. I hope that there can be better partnership between public-private sector, and with the government's fiscal position improving, we can finally deal with these. In this year's budget, we have a specific chapter on integrated development of culture, sports, and tourism, and the government is practicing an industry-led approach. I think this responds to the needs of society. As said in the budget, we have seen 3 years of growth in the economy of Hong Kong, and we have many mega events. We have an increasing number of visitors. We should continue to work hard in this area. We will also have another event replacing the Symphony of Lights. We should promote to mainland cities and the other markets we are developing, such as the Middle East and ASEAN, about the different activities we are holding. We will make an injection to the Arts and Sports Development Fund. For sports in particular, it's a $1.2 billion fund injection. I hope that we can have more mega events in sports. This can also tie in with our advantage being an events capital. We have, between March and April, we held many different events, and I take part in the many activities. I saw many visitors come here for specifically these activities. I hope with the budget measures, we can have even more cultural, sports, and tourism industrial development measures too. We should really tie in these measures with district activities so that we can have neighborhoods truly benefit from these activities. There is great potential to be tapped into with the cultural, sports, and tourism sector. President, I so submit speaking in support of the Appropriation Bill 2026. Dr. Junius Ho. President, just like the past few years, for this year's budget, I want to talk about how we can develop new revenue sources and save costs. We really need to consider what we can do even more for public finance. We do see a surplus this year, but if we look at the situation carefully, the public finances are insecure. There is great room for improvement. This is the first year of the National 5-Year Plan. We need to actively dovetail with the country's strategy and serve its development. We have seen what the country has been doing over the years. It is definitely progressing. We should really ride on this train to reap the fruits of the progress of the country. We are also preparing for our own 5-year plan. With our estimates in future, we need to have similar model of planning. We really need to think about how we can develop new revenue sources and save costs. For 2026 and 2027, we have $765.2 billion in revenue and $843.4 billion in expenditure. The deficit is $78.2 billion with some maneuvering. We have borrowed funds of $160 billion. We have also paid back bonds of $59.7 billion. We have including the operational surplus. On figure, we have $22.1 billion of surplus, but we are basically living on credit card to make this happen. We are borrowing money for this. We have capital expenditure, say for the Northern Metropolis, that we have to spend trillions of dollars in it. We do not have a full projection of the cost, but then we have already increased the ceiling for borrowed money from $500 billion to $900 billion to prepare for future infrastructural investment. Why are we in this position? We have for capital income, we used to have land sale revenue of $200 billion. Now we have a much lower revenue. It is 80% lower than before. The financial secretary has been working hard to really boost this land sale revenue that has not seen much improvement in the past few years. I understand where he is coming from, but I want to point out something. In this year and the near future, we'll be living on a credit card. We're borrowing money. We must pay it back. Otherwise, we shouldn't borrow money in the first place. This is my observation. Second, with revenue, we're basically tapping into our piggy bank. We are getting funds from 6 seed funds as well as the 30-odd funds. We are basically pinching pennies. And in this year's budget, it is very clear in paragraph 262. We have $61.5 billion clawed back from the government funds to the government accounts. And we have 36 funds that are under review. So together we have $87.3 billion. So we have $22.1 billion surplus. We are tapping into 2 sources for that. Basically, we're living on a credit card as well as tapping into our piggy bank. But breaking the piggy bank is not something we can do every day. With the piggy bank broken, you won't have anything. You have to save up for many years again to break the piggy bank again. What should we do now? On developing new revenue sources, I saw in this year's appropriation bill, we will have $600-odd billion. And the expenditure is revenue is $652.4 billion. We have in recurrent revenue, taxation revenue from profits tax and salaries tax that would be $300-odd billion. We have for betting duty $20 odd billion. We have $500 odd billion in revenue, taxation, private profits tax, and salaries tax are our biggest source, $300 billion. If we can have 10% more in tax revenue, we will have an additional $30 billion in income. Everyone knows we have a low tax system. This is not a sustainable system because we have a narrow tax base. Can we do something about increasing the tax rate? We shouldn't be worried that with an upward adjustment of tax rate, people will go to somewhere else as long as it is profitable to stay in Hong Kong. If we can provide them with investors with profitable opportunities, I believe it can work. In the past few years, we've been trying to attract investors with low tax rates. It is going to deviate from this, but I think it is time for us to think about whether we should solely rely on low tax rates to attract investors, because this is not sustainable. Can we also widen the tax base? Hong Kong is a paradise for shopping. I heard another member say, we are not faced only with competition from the mainland, but in general online shopping. So brick and mortar premises are challenged. Can we test out VAT? I know this can offend many people. Many people will find it hard to accept, but we have value-added tax in many places, including in the mainland. Can we really think about this? Can we just charge something low, like 1 or 2%? We just want to pilot the arrangements. We have airport departure tax. We have hotel accommodation tax. VAT tax, value-added tax, is not a great step forward. I think once you started it, you can make adjustments. On saving money, the biggest part we're saving right now is education, social welfare, and healthcare. Right now, for these three areas, we have $102.3, $103.5.9, and $118.9 billion. So it's $357.1 billion. It is 59.54% of the total recurrent expenditure. This is a huge sum. If we can save just 5% in these areas, you would already have $17.8 billion. But of course, the member next to me, Reverend Peter Kuhn, would complain. You're already making a 2% cut to social welfare expenditure. It is painful. I think what we have to think about is in implementation. We need to benefit those who should benefit from this. You may ask whether there is abuse at the moment. I can guarantee you there is abuse always. So we can really think about also for civil servants, we have $53.9 billion in pension allocated. It is 7 to 8% of the total expenditure. That is a great cost. Why is it so high? There are historical reasons, but then I also find it hard to believe we have $1 billion in election for the holding of election, and a great part of the cost is for part-time work of civil servants. It's $1.1 billion. Since they're already receiving pension and high personal allowance, can't they work on a volunteer basis? I have great expectations for the government. I support the bill at the moment, but I hope you can dovetail with the National 15 5-year plan.
Mr. Brave Chen, thank you, President. I also thank Mr. Christopher Hui, Ms. Winnie Ho, and other government officials for listening to us. The DAB fully supports the Appropriation Bill 2026. Now, my topic today is picking up speed on boosting our economy seeking developments and benefiting the people and aligning with the 15th Five-Year Plan. Now, the presidency's aspiration for Hong Kong is to enhance our governance capability and pursue high-quality developments and maintain stability and harmony by caring for people's livelihood. Now, according to Mr. John Lee, with the uncertainties in the larger world, we have to embrace our core strengths, that is stability and connectivity with the world and the country, so as to integrate with the national development blueprint. Now, the global economy is undergoing adjustments and there are wars going on in other parts of the world. On the contrary, the Greater China area is safe. Now, while war is raging on, Hong Kong is still offering investment opportunities with our stability. Now, thanks to the robust stock market, we have returned the government's fiscal budget to the black. That's the right direction to go. Now, in terms of aviation and maritime as well as housing, there are a lot of measures to boost the industries. We are bidding farewell to the subdivided flags, and we are improving the living environments for the grassroots. It shows that we are pursuing quality with faster speed as well as lower cost. Now, this budget has the theme of driving high quality, inclusive growth with innovation and finance. I support all these directions. The National 15th Five-Year Plan is the largest opportunity for Hong Kong. If we can tap the opportunity, we can pick up speed in development. Now, can we have more IPO listings from the likes of Yingde Times? That will help boost our international financial center status further. Now, the chief executive is leading the drafting work of the first Hong Kong 5-year plan. Now, I would like to provide my 2 cents for the government's reference. Now, every national 5-year plan is like building on top of the previous foundation. We are building the tower higher and taller and taller. Now, the country is now the second largest economy in the world. That's what Hong Kong should do as well. We have to canvass views widely from professional bodies and political parties. For my constituency, that is CPPCC members, these are veteran, patriotic political figures. They include representatives from the Mariners Association and also the National Federation of Social Organizations. Now, of course, the government needs to communicate to the central ministries closer, especially the Reform and Development Committee in terms of the budget. We need to collaborate with provincial and municipal governments as well, but local governments tend to give priorities to their own provinces. So we need to tell the central governments what we are good at, so that the central governments would give us more opportunities. Now, if we have drafted up our 5-year plan and we are told by the central governments that, sorry, that part is already taken by another province, then that would be bad. So we need to have more communication with the central ministries. Now, under the leadership of the council presidents, we have close relationship with the executive branch. Now, in this very afternoon, the MPC and CPPCC members will meet with the administration, and that's great. Now, I'm moving on to integration with the Bay Area. That includes cross-boundary people and capital flow and also alignments of rules. I think the Oasis and the government is doing a good job in terms of attracting business and helping mainland businesses to go global. But what about combining our standards with the larger Bay standard and also the Guobiao? Now, there are lots of cutting-edge technologies, for example, aviation and aerospace technologies and also driverless vehicles. Now, the country has come close to or even exceeded the Western world's standard. Now, the building technology is so advanced that in the country there are cafes set up on the rooftops or chimneys of buildings. So with better technology, in the future, we don't have to worry about paying the municipal solid waste fees anymore. And also with better flow of vehicles across the boundary, we can have more high-end visitors and businessmen coming to Hong Kong, boosting our businesses. Now, 2 days ago, a DAB's CPPCC member has paid a visit to the emergency office in Shenzhen. There are lots of advanced emergency rescue vehicles and also robot canines. Now, there are advanced smoke tents which can cover 2 persons and help them survive for 2 minutes amidst a fire. The tents have combined the spacefaring technology of spacesuits used by our astronauts as well as state-of-the-art air circulation technologies. Now, state leaders as well as politicians in Hong Kong are well aware that AI will make or break, as said by Elon Musk and Jensen Huang. Now, AI needs data as well as electricity. If we don't have data and electricity for AI, then it's like we have a gun but not bullets and a car but not petrol. So I'm the director of a green company. Now, there are a lot of electricity wasted because we don't have the storage capabilities along with that. That means that in Hong Kong, with a data center, we need to have stable power supply, which is not affected by the situation in the Persian Gulf. Can we have dedicated laws for that to replenish our power storage and give priority to the Hetao Loop area and the Sentinel Pole? Now, I'm moving on to the care teams. Now, my organization is actively involved in care teams. Many of our colleagues are volunteers. Now, I thank the government for giving more support to care teams. Now, we should make reference to the CAD and also the auxiliary medical services to provide more administrative support to the hundreds of thousands of volunteers in care teams to serve the public well. Now, overall speaking, we fully support the budgets to pick up speed in pursuing economic growth, benefiting the people, and more accurately aligning with the 15th Five-Year Plan so as to pursue high-quality developments for Hong Kong. Mr. Aaron Bock. President, the Middle Eastern situation has caused a lot of shockwaves. Now, the geopolitical tension has brought challenges for Hong Kong. So the government needs to be suitably active to provide more support to enhance the confidence and sense of well-being of the people. Now, however, the economic recovery is less robust than expected, and the property market is still cool. Now, the construction industry has been hard hit. Capital works expenditure has been increased to $120 billion by the government, but still there is a huge gap. Many consultancy firms and professional companies are faced with the situation of underemployment or even unemployment. That's why they are spending less, and they are even putting marriage and childbirth on hold. Now, that may turn into deflation, and Hong Kong may be caught in a vicious cycle. Now, I'm pleased to see that this year the Financial Secretary has themed his budget on driving high-quality, inclusive growth with innovation and finance. I support it. All in all, we had a good start in year 2026. We should seize this good start and further reinvigorate our economy with infrastructure projects. The most advanced economies are doing exactly that in the world. In year 2026, there will be a number of large-scale projects in the Northern Metropolis. I'm pleased to see that the government are funding these projects through plowing back $120 billion from the Foreign Exchange Reserve Fund to the CWRF and raising the borrowing limits of the government to $900 billion. That's close to the $1 trillion limits that we have proposed. Now, the expenditure on capital work has been increased to $128 billion, but we can always invest more. The Northern Metropolis development is the priority right now. Many of my fellow colleagues have spoken on that, especially on dedicated legislation for its development. I will not labor on those points. I hope these laws will be passed soon so as to remove red tape, streamline workflows, and allow the projects to be taken forward at full speed. I applaud the Development Bureau for the issuance of the notice in January this year. There will be a time limit set for approval process with high-level intervention. That's aligned with the government's promise to speed up the approval process. Now, besides regulator, the government should also be facilitator. By adopting a fair and scientific approach, where possible, the government should proactively provide constructive opinions or improvements advice for applicants so that all applications can be approved in no less than 2 rounds of application. That is fully in line with the public interest. The civil servants should not worry about being investigated by the ICAC by providing advice to businesses. We have to send a message to the public that our infrastructure projects are not white elephant projects simply for the sake of GDP growth. There is a real need for the infrastructure. They are real investment rather than spending. I strongly suggest the government to be even bolder. Most capital works projects are concentrated in the Northern Metropolis. Outside of the NM, many mature projects have been put on hold or even suspended. That's not necessary. The BPA suggests that we simultaneously take forward other projects outside of NM. For example, the Route 11 and also Cheng Long Bridge. These must be built with an urgent priority. The entire Route 11 will address the connectivity issue between the Northern Metropolis and the urban areas in the north and the south. Otherwise, the Tuen Mun and Tai Lam highway will be heavily congested. Now, the Cheng Long Bridge the construction project will begin in year 2028. Now, the main tunnel section will adopt a PPP model. Now, the government should provide tax concession and operating period measures to attract more private participation to alleviate the financial burden on the government. Now, the government plans to formulate a 5-year plan to align with the country's 5-year plan. So the BPA suggests integrating the 5-year projects into our capital works project. Now, for example, we are producing 1,500 tons of of 50 million tons of public fuels each year. We can make use of these fuel materials to conduct reclamation at zero cost. Now, during the epidemic, we have purchased a large amount of sea sand to build the first phase of Penny Bay for the Disneyland projects. Now, for the second phase, it took 10 years' time to conduct reclamation with public landfill at zero cost. We should make reference to this approach. Now, many of our major tunnels, bridges, and buildings have been in use for more than 50 years' time. So for these old drainage pipes and tunnels, for example, Aberdeen Tunnel, Chingcheng Road, Longcheng Road flyover, and also Cross Harbour Tunnel, that should be an overhaul. So while taking forward the 5-year plan, I hope the government will also accept my 5-year plan for rehabilitating aged infrastructure to conduct an in-depth health check and repair for our infrastructure. Now, the Lion Rocks Tunnel has been used for more than 50 years. It is very aged. Every night, it has to be closed off for maintenance so as to barely scrape by. That's not a long-term plan. So starting from the next financial year, the government should kickstart the renovating work for this artery between Sha Tin and Kowloon. Now, for the 3 harbour crossing tunnel, there are more and more vehicular flow. Now, there are signs that during peak hours, the congestion situation may return to before the rationalization program. So it's time to start studying whether we need a 4th harbour crossing and also the alignments. Now, the BPA suggests the alignments along the Khao Yi Chao area. Now, finally, on civil service, the BPA welcomes the government's promise to adjust the civil service pay according to the pay trend survey review reports. Now, the economy relies heavily on the contribution of the civil service. We need to recognize civil servants' contribution. Reasonable increase in pay can enhance morale as well as boost the economy. But I'm sad to see that for the next 2 years, there will be another 2 percentage points cuts in the civil service establishment. While there are so many infrastructure projects ongoing, it is unreasonable to cut the number of professional posts in the DSD, Lands Department, CDD, and so on. These 5 departments, in 3 years' time, hundreds of surveyors, engineers, and landscapers have been laid off. Now, my civil servant friends told me that they are breaking at the seams. If there are more job cuts, they will be snowed under. So we need to remove this straitjacket on development. The civil servants, these works departments are changing the game, so they are faced with lots of opposition in society. So we need to give them sufficient support. Now, the budget has been very well received. It is widely thought that this is an innovative and aggressive budget. Now, civil service is the pillar of the government's executive prowess. The stability and professionality of the civil service is the crucial elements for the government to take forward reform. We can't ask them to give their best while we are treating them badly. So the government should review whether it is necessary to reduce the civil service establishment. I so submit I support the Appropriation Bill 2026.
Mr. Chu Lap Wai. Thank you, President. I speak in support of the Appropriation Bill 2026. I'd like to speak on the education portfolio on behalf of the DAB. We think that in the budget, when the fiscal position is tight, the government is still prioritizing resources for education. Total expenditure is standing at $112 billion. and we are tying in with the 15th Five-Year Plan as well. We are making Hong Kong an international education hub and developing it into an international high-caliber talent hub. I go along with this direction. This has injected significant momentum into education development in Hong Kong. I have three main suggestions. First of all, the DAB attaches a lot of importance to the construction of the NM University Town. This is a major step towards becoming an international education hub, and it also drives industrial upgrading and transformation. It also pushes for innovation and technology development. We need to commission more projects. I welcome the government's decision to inject more funds to subsidize the projects in the NM University Town. 3 pieces of land will also be released to support education development in that area. We need to attract internationally renowned educational institutions to come to Hong Kong. This is exactly how we can train talent for the development of new quality productive forces. This shows that the commitment of the government to education is long-term and sustainable. We also need to promote the integrated development of research, academia, and industry. We need to commercialize or translate R&D outcomes. We need to inject significant momentum to INT development. This is how we can develop Hong Kong into an international education hub. I hope that the government will improve resource allocation so that the university town in the NM and the industrial parks will be commissioned in tandem. This will prevent resources from being spread out too thin. This is exactly how we can develop Hong Kong into a cradle for international talent. At the same time, we need to expedite the development of the Hetao Shenzhen Hong Kong Technology and Innovation Cooperation Zone. This zone is the major platform under the 15th Five-Year Plan. It is also the major engine for growth in relation to the new quality productive forces. I suggest that the government further enhances policies in relation to cross-boundary flow of talent and research talent. Administrative measures and procedures should be streamlined. IMU branch should be introduced into the Hetao area in Hong Kong. We have the distinct advantage of having the East meeting the West in Hong Kong. We also have our distinct advantages in mathematics. Applied mathematics, statistics, AI, we have advantages regarding R&D teams. If we can make this happen, we can develop Hong Kong into an international INT center. This will enrich our functions under the principle of one country, two systems. The Quality Education Fund will also set aside $2 billion to digital education in primary and secondary schools. As I understand, many schools are proactively making applications, and this shows the determination of the education sector to upgrading and transformation. The DAB going forward will proactively liaise with the academic sector. We will tap the industry for their views on digital education in order to assist in the administration in publishing the digital education development blueprint by the end of this year. We will also proactively lead schools to work on this front. Under the 15th Five-Year Plan, the country emphasizes that we need to implement digital education and promote lifelong learning. The budget has already accorded fund to enhancing AI, but it's not just about hardware. It also depends on whether we have digital literacy. I suggest that we draw reference from our national strategies for digital education. We need to go by the principles adopted by our country. On the basis of teacher training, we need to expand the training coverage. Principals, parents should be included in the training coverage. This is how we can foster a system in which teachers, principals, and parents will also receive digital education support. In parallel, the government should also draw reference from the 15th Five-Year Plan of our country to set different directions and guidelines. We need to conduct regular assessments in different areas such as AI literacy, digital ethics, innovative mindset. These should be used to assess students. This is how we can assess our demand for talent in this era. I also agree with the budget's direction for developing the local economy. I agree that we need to contribute to the construction of the GBA in different areas such as INT, finance, cultural, sports. We need to contribute to the high quality development of these areas, and I'm going to focus on tourism now. First of all, we need to continue to deepen our collaboration when it comes to tourism with other cities, municipalities in the GBA. We need to promote single journey, multiple destination tourism. Against the backdrop of GBA integration, I have been advocating yacht economy. This dovetails with our national strategic directions. Hong Kong has a lot of advantages and strengths when it comes to developing yacht economy. We have 1,180 km of shoreline. We also have 263 islands. We have the conditions to develop a yacht hub in Asia. In recent years, the government has been relaxing the measures for yachts. This will lay the foundation for yachts to come to Hong Kong and for Hong Kong yachts to go north. Yacht leasing, repair and maintenance, insurance, professional services. This is the complete industrial chain. We need to add more job positions, especially grassroots positions. We need to seize upon the opportunities and work closely with the GBA cities. The routes should be closely connected to cities in the GBA. This is how we can receive high-end yacht visitors. This will generate significant income for the local economy. At the same time, we need to attract high-quality overnight visitors to Hong Kong, Art Basel, Rugby Sevens, and we are going to hold French Art Festival in May. This will bring to Hong Kong many visitors, and this will benefit the F&B and the hotel industry. For longer vacations, Hong Kong people would leave Hong Kong for vacations. However, incoming visitors will only come to Hong Kong to experience certain areas, and there is still not sufficient depth in relation to their itineraries. We shouldn't focus on certain areas, otherwise some areas will become touristy, whereas other areas will become less so. I suggest closer collaboration among different industries. There should be highlights in some areas. This is how we can add vitality to all 18 districts and have different characteristics in all 18 districts. We also need to seize upon these opportunities to entice visitors in Hong Kong to make more spending. This is a direction worthy of our exploration. I believe Hong Kong has the capability for attracting visitors to come to Hong Kong and spend. And this is exactly how we can implement the principle of tourism is everywhere. We need to actively dovetail with the 15th Five-Year Plan of our country, and we also need to pour resources to develop Hong Kong. I speak in full support of the budget. Thank you. Mr. Lam Wai Kong. Thank you, President. I thank the Financial Secretary for the budget. It's turned from red to black. Although it's difficult to please all parties, indeed it has responded to many calls of different groups of people. It is worth our commendation. I'd like to focus on three main areas: labor, civil servants, and transportation. In relation to the labor sector, the FTU and I are concerned about protecting local workers. We are concerned about different employment measures, occupational safety and health measures, as well as vocational training. I thank the government for increasing resources for the reemployment allowance pilot scheme, as well as the employment program for the elderly and the middle-aged. Mandatory safety training will also be conducted. Different occupational safety and health events will be organized in order to enhance safety, and this will enhance the safety awareness from source. In relation to supplementary labor importation scheme, as well as the cross-departmental workforce on illegal workers set up by the Security Bureau last September, all these will help us protect local workers. We will ensure that employment opportunities are given to local workers first. Some local workers have related to us that owing to imported laborers, it is difficult for them to secure a job. Some employers do not comply with the rule of according job opportunities to locals first. That's why we recommend that the Labor Department conduct surprise checks in different work venues. There should also be a complaint mechanism. The cross-departmental workforce set up by the Security Bureau should also strengthen efforts to clamp down on illegal workers employed by some sectors in Hong Kong. This will ensure that the local labor market accords priority to locals. The jobless rates of some sectors continue to rise, and as a result, I suggest that the quota for imported workers should be tightened. I also think that we should adjust the ratio of local workers and imported workers. This should be extended to cover different positions. If the jobless rate remains high for that particular sector, the quota should be suspended or adjustments should be limited. This is exactly how we can prioritize local employment. Regarding CS, that is civil servants in Hong Kong, the system of civil servants in Hong Kong has long been hailed as highly efficient and professional. They are the backbone of local governance. Boosting staff morale, telling the good stories of the civil service, the administration has done a lot of different work. For example, we have the CE commendation scheme for civil servants, and we also have the same scheme of the Secretary for Civil Service. This shows the commitment and passion of local civil servants. Every civil servant receiving recognition from the administration should be commendable. I also suggest that quotas under these schemes be increased. This is how we can recognize and acknowledge even more civil servants who work very hard in the positions. I visited many trade unions or associations within the civil service that talk about the CS pay adjustment mechanisms. If the patron survey's result is that there should be a pay rise, I hope that the government will follow the result. This will boost staff morale of the civil service. This will also prevent a pay freeze for a long time. Otherwise, this will affect staff morale in Hong Kong. The medical benefits of the CS is also one of the highlights. We're glad to see that continuous injections are being provided to fund different dental service schemes. We have also received different views on burgeoning demands for medical services as well as quality of these services. That's why the existing healthcare system of civil servants should be studied. There should be room for enhancement. For example, probably civil servants should be allowed to take part in VHIS. This will meet the demand of civil servants of different age brackets. At the same time, we are highly concerned about the arrangement for cutting CS posts. In the coming 2 years, the CS establishment will shrink by 2% annually. and the accumulative deletion will total 10,000 posts. We understand this is a necessary measure for controlling expenditure, but this should be implemented on the premise that public services will not be undermined. We are mindful of the fact that in some civil service positions, future workload will become even heavier if we are still cutting civil service establishment. It is unavoidable that people will become worried about the quality of public services. I hope that the government will more cautiously assess CS establishment in order to make sure that the morale of civil servants will not be affected. In relation to transportation, we are glad to see that the administration is mindful of the impact of oil. Time-limited diesel subsidy was approved by the Finance Committee. This has eased the operating pressure on the industry concerned. We all know that in relation to the transportation sector, it has everything to do with members of the public. When the government provides subsidies to the transportation sectors, it is just the same as protecting the well-being of the public. However, in addition to short-term diesel subsidies, we are also looking forward to even longer measures, such as waiving the license fee and vehicle inspection fees for commercial vehicles. There is pressure as a result of the rising costs of oil. This will pose extra pressure on the minibus sector. Regarding delivery platform workers, it doesn't receive any support from the administration. I hope that the government will combat price fixing. It should also keep a close watch on the overall situation to prevent any abuse or any unfair price competition. Otherwise, this will lead to the fact that the frontline workers and industries will not be able to benefit. I also suggest that the government actively dovetails with the GBA as well as other cities nearby. We need to promote the stable supply of energy. We need to champion clean energy. And we also need to provide more energy stations. This is how we can help the industry to engage in low carbon transformation. We noticed that the government is mindful of the issue of a lack of parking spaces for commercial vehicles. 6,000 goods vehicle parking spaces will be provided to improve the situation. However, we want the administration to announce the timeline in this regard as soon as possible. In the process of planning, I hope that the administration will heed the views of the industry as well. This is to make sure that the supply will meet the demand. In addition to parking spaces, we have already noticed that the administration is minded to impose stricter requirements on professional drivers above the age of 65. The annual medical checkup for drivers aged 65 or above is also a cause for concern. We hope the frontline drivers' burden will be eased, including providing fundings for the medical checkups of frontline drivers. Your time's up.
好，
All right. Next, Mr. Chong Ho-feng. Deputy President, I would like to speak on several areas of the budget, and then I will go into the specific expenditure as well as the replies of the administration during the Special Finance Committee sessions. On the issuance of bonds, with several years of people calling for this, the government has finally increased the size of bond issuance from 14.4% of the GDP to 19.9% GDP. We have called for the percentage to be increased to 20% before. It would be $200 billion. This can support 2 Northern Metropolis infrastructure projects, including the cross-boundary railway project from Shanghai to Hongshui-Q. This is what the Roundtable has been calling for many years. Also, the expedited construction of the Tuen Mun South Station and Eastern Extension to Siu Lam, Tuen Mun, and it can connect to the Hongshui-Q Sunny Bay extension so that people can go to Sunny Bay and then take Tongchong Line to get to urban areas. This will accommodate the needs of the new population in the area, including the new development areas. The National 15 Five-Year Plan asks for Hong Kong and Shenzhen to work together to leverage on our respective advantages. With this railway project, we can have connectivity to the Hong Kong International Airport, and it can then connect to the Shenzhen Bao'an Airport, because the Shenzhen Bao'an Airport has 100-odd domestic routes. It can really benefit us. The government talked about this year how this year they would review the project. I hope the government can expedite the review, and before we have the new population move into the Northwestern New Territories area, we already have some sort of plan in place. I also very much support clawing back funds from the exchange fund of the amount of $150 billion to the Capital Works Reserve Fund to invest in our future. If we are investing in the exchange fund, it's just investing in the future of Hong Kong. Since we're investing in infrastructure, it's also investing in Hong Kong. I think it is good that we're investing in infrastructure to benefit the public. The Financial Secretary has proposed some measures on livelihood policy, but I think there's room for improvement. There are only some tax concessions, and the tax allowance has increased by 10%. I guess it's better than nothing. I have great appreciation for other budget measures. I think with the livelihood measures, there can be some enhancements. For the Special Finance Committee sessions, during which the administration provided replies, the government said they want to enhance the quality and efficiency of the civil service. They want to effectively distinguish between different work performance levels, but I'm concerned about implementation. Often supervisors don't want to stir up trouble, and they just say civil servants' performance is satisfactory, so increments will be automatically awarded. We should set perhaps a percentage of civil servants that cannot be awarded increments, perhaps at the level of 20%. About the expenditure on chief executives' offices, the Roundtable has been raising concerns about this. We want to make good use of public money. Is it the case that we need a new office for every chief executive that has? Right now, chief executive's office would spend $15 million annually for their office expenditure. 50 million may not be a lot for the government, but citizens are worried why so much money is being used on chief executives' offices. And there is an independent report on chief executives leaving arrangements. There were 2 main recommendations made. The commission who did the report suggested that in existing properties, we should have a single office for all ex-chief executives, and there should be a regular review mechanism to consider whether the arrangements are appropriate. The government's response has been that they would follow the report's recommendations, but it seems that we're not doing anything still. On electric vehicles, we have some reservations about the government's decision not to extend the one-for-one replacement scheme. Many vehicle owners want the scheme to be extended. Unfortunately, the scheme has already been terminated. So at this point, we just want the government to provide more support in the provision of charging facilities. According to the administration's reply, petrol filling station operators are asked to, after obtaining approval and signing of relevant contracts, to complete relevant works within 6 months to 1 year. But we have only one petrol filling station retrofitting such facilities, and it only is commissioned this year. Between 2024 and 2025, 24 PFSs receive approval for retrofitting charging infrastructure. What happened in between? The senior government officials said there are some technical and safety issues, and they will review the priorities and learn from the experience for the first petrol filling station to expedite the progress. We will continuously monitor the situation to ensure the progress of adopting EVs. On transportation, the roundtable has all around raised concerns about Tai Lam Tunnel takeover by the government. We have our previous estimates. Even with depreciation, Tai Lam Tunnel has $300 million in profit. If we disregard the depreciation, it's $500 million. We have a very healthy fees ratio for Tai Lam Tunnel. During non-peak hours, it's 0.5. During peak hours, it's 0.9. There is no need to charge tolls to divert traffic. So, does the government need to reduce the tolls? Tai Lam Tunnel is different from the other three harbor crossings. They would only have congestion on Kowloon-bound roads in the morning and not during nighttime Yuen Long-bound roads. Why do we still need to charge $40? Even if you're charging tolls, can we charge by direction? We have also been suggesting the government to review to the MTR's fare adjustment mechanism and apply them to franchise buses. The MTRC's mechanism is often subject to complaints, but at least there's downward adjustment at some point. But for buses, we would have fare adjustments, and in 2019 they have increased the fare by 7%. And it may sound like a lot, but during that period before the fare adjustment, it has increased. The inflation there is 30-odd%. So can we have a mechanism that refers to data that makes minor adjustments so that it can be fair to both citizens and bus companies? The relevant secretary said we have to be prudent in applying the mechanism of the MTR to bus services. And they said the existing mechanism for buses is effective. As a gatekeeper, it is important to ensure stability of bus finances. The government is actually proposing an automatic mechanism, which we appreciate. We have seen recent fluctuations in oil prices, and we're glad to hear that the administration has proposed a subsidy. But we hope the government makes sure there is a regulatory mechanism to make sure the public money goes to the needed areas rather than becoming profit for oil companies. These are areas that citizens are most concerned about. We hope that the government heeds our advice and suggestions. Mr. Holden Chow. Thank you, Deputy President. With this year's budget, the DAB supports the budget measures. We also want to express our views today in relation to implementation of the measures. We have seen the fiscal position of the government improve, yet last year we still had a deficit. Now we have seen an improvement in the environment. We have a vibrant stock market bringing about significant amounts of stamp duty revenue. It has definitely improved our deficit. With an improvement in public finances, people have expectations for the allocation of public money to benefit people's lives. And in this year's budget, we can see many resources being invested in investment for the future, especially for the development of the Northern Metropolis. We believe this is necessary. Northern Metropolis is a new engine for growth of the local economy in future. We believe that investment will generate growth for the future, but then we should not neglect needs for support for the livelihood of people. I would like to take this opportunity to repeat something I have said on different occasions in the council. With the increase in medical fees in public hospitals, many citizens said it is a heavy burden on them because the medical fees have more or less doubled. We have been asking for the government to provide waivers. Right now, the waiver only applies to elderly persons aged 75 years old or above receiving old age living allowance. We propose to decrease the threshold to 65 years old because elderly persons would start receiving old age living allowance at the age of 65, and if they pass the means test, we know that this is a group that has actual economic needs for assistance. I think with the lowering of the threshold, it is killing more than one bird with one stone. Deputy President, I hope you understand what I'm saying. Basically, we can help those who are age 65 years old or above and have actual economic needs in a targeted manner. We can save time and the complex procedures for applying for a waiver. In fact, we have medical social workers helping elderly persons apply for waivers these days. It's not just about filling out forms, and it cannot be done on one occasion. Often people have to go multiple times to complete the waiver applications. Not only is it troublesome for the elderly persons, the medical social workers face a heavy burden because of this additional workload. What I mean by killing more than one bird with one stone is that we can help specifically elderly persons with economic needs. We can also save them time and effort in applying waivers, and that would also mean we can save administrative costs of the government. The hospital authority needs additional manpower to approve relevant applications. So I think we should try to kill multiple birds with one stone. The administration has not promised anything at the moment. I hope the government will listen to us and other citizens. If it is considered feasible, the application threshold should be lowered to those age 65 years old or above and receiving old age living allowance. We already have a mechanism in place, and elderly persons, if they have passed means tests, we should not have such complex procedures. This is an important suggestion I want to make for my speech today. Deputy President, we have asked many valid questions during the Special Finance Committee sessions. I think there are a couple of them we're following up on, especially of the 100 SME, the SME financing guarantee scheme that has 100% guaranteed products. We have the default rate being 19.3%. It's $27.8 billion. Now, for the $27.8 billion, we know that $6.1 billion is relevant to criminal conduct such as fraud and other criminal offenses, according to the reply of the administration during the Special Finance Committee sessions. $6.1 billion is not a small sum. And obviously, if fraudulent conduct is involved, it's basically cheating the money of the government. We have people taking the money and leaving or using the money for other purposes. After all, this is public money. I have asked the government then, during the Special Finance Committee sessions, to set up a task force to actively recover these sums. If criminal conduct is involved, the police can intervene. If there are affiliates of these individuals that are still in Hong Kong, can we recover the money from them? I mean, we should at least ask them to shoulder criminal responsibility. This matters to justice. We should set up a task force specifically for recovery of public money. During the Special Finance Committee sessions, it has also been mentioned, well, in the past 3 years, I have actually published a report making some recommendations for measures, and one of them is, and I mentioned this during the Special Finance Committee sessions, to have the new industrialization elite enterprise nurturing scheme to nurture new industrial companies with great growth potential. I hope the government, when reviewing the eligibility, there should be regular updates to the criteria. In fact, if we hand out awards, if the award ceremonies are held every year or 2 years, there will be updates to the criteria for the award. With this nurturing scheme, if there are no regular updates, with rapid changes in circumstances, we may need to nurture different companies. So when government resources are involved, we need to make sure there are regular updates to the eligibility criteria for the nurturing scheme. During the Special Finance Committee sessions, we also talked about the Small Claims Tribunal. The Small Claims Tribunal's operations are very efficient. It only takes them 41 days from the initiation of the proceedings up to the conclusion of the proceedings. It is much lower than the average of 60 days. But I want to say, for Small Claims Tribunal, because the parties are not legally represented, the judicial officers and frontline officers have to do everything. They have to do much. If they do well and can help the public, can we deploy additional manpower to Small Claims Tribunal to support the frontline officers as well as the judicial officers? We believe the public can benefit from this. Deputy President, I support the bill. I so submit.
Next, Mr. Moonkit. Deputy President, I speak in support of this appropriation bill. This year's budget has done well in terms of supporting the economy and improving livelihood. There are a lot of new measures, and I applaud them. I appreciate that the Financial Secretary says that we have to cast our eyes further. At the beginning of the National 15th Five-Year Plan, we have to do more than short-term measures. We have to lay a strategic blueprint with foresight for our next 2 decades development. I believe the core is with education and talent. Now, yesterday, we have witnessed the return of the remains of war veterans to Shenyang, and I, along with 5 representatives from those families, witnessed the solemn ceremony. Now, it gave me deeper insights into the vision laid down by President Xi, that is security, ensure development. We are enjoying what we have now because a large number of martyrs have laid down their life for the foundation of a thriving society. Now, the best way to show respect and pay tribute to these war veterans is to build our home better. So this is a heavy burden on our shoulders. This year's budget has seen this term of the government embracing innovative technologies in an unprecedented manner and use technology as the core driving force of our economy. I fully support it. Now, under the budgets, AI, robotics, and other industries, emerging industries, are designated as our priorities, and also we will develop the Northern Metropolis faster. All these strategies are closely related. It shows a clear message that Hong Kong will remain steadfast in its positioning given by the country and contribute its own strength. Now, no matter how grand the plans are, we need talents to execute them. Without talents, no matter how marvelous the Northern Metropolis is, and no matter how much we talk about AI, there will be no soul for behind these developments. So we need to focus on the integrated developments between talent and technology. These are 2 components which are working closely together. Now, University Town is also important. It is a historic development for Hong Kong. We have to be very thorough in its planning. Now, the question is, what should the University Town bring to Hong Kong? It shouldn't just be an extension of existing campus spaces. It should be a strategic pivot for enhancing Hong Kong's competitiveness in the world. We need to embrace the core strategy of advantageous disciplines rather than just look at the number. The size of campuses and the size of the teaching staff is not important. It's about quality. Semiconductor, quantum science, and AI, these emerging frontier areas are redefining the international tertiary education landscape. If we have just a few tens of thousands more study places in the Northern Metropolis, that's not enough. Now, Singapore is cooperating with the Massachusetts University to enhance its research quality. Now, for Abu Dhabi, it has been actively creating an international academic platform. The 2 governments understand that introducing top-tier international talents are more important than mere quantity. Now, the Northern Metropolis is an important cooperation zone in the Bay Area. It enjoys unique geographical advantage. If we can forge a platform where international academia and also industries can interact with our own research talents, that would be great. Now, there are several strategies. We have to give priority to green technology, AI, semiconductor, and other frontier technologies. We are highly related to our future direction. And also, we have to allow local universities to collaborate with international research bodies, either under joint venture model or respective research effort. Now, also, we have to make our framework attractive enough to attract internationally renowned researchers. Now, if we can do that, we can attract top-tier researchers and capital to Hong Kong, and we can reduce the exodus of top-tier research talents from Hong Kong. And we can also strengthen Hong Kong's strategic position as an international education hub. Now, of course, we need to be prudent with any large-scale projects. We can consider a public-private partnership model to attract participation of private investors to ensure the longevity and stability of the program. Now, the university town's positioning is key to our development. We need to upgrade our research and education system to embrace the future. Now, there are 3 suggestions. First, we need to deeply integrate AI into our education system. Now, with AI, we can release teachers from tedious administrative work and free up their time for enhancing the value system as well as the emotional health of students. These tasks cannot be replaced with AI. There should be a dedicated fund to formulate a framework of teachers' capability in the era of AI with training modules. And also, we have to formulate a blueprint for AI education for Hong Kong. We can't just rely on individual funding program. Now, tying in with the country's AI Plus action plan, we have to build a secure and massive AI education platform. On the premises of protection of privacy, we need to ensure that there is sufficient data for AI education. Now, finally, we need to ensure that AI is safe to use. AI is a double-edged sword. We have to equip students with the capability to identify deepfake images as well as other fake news. This is closely aligned with the country's strategy. Now, our future's competitiveness depends on how many future leading talents we can nurture. Now, this budget provides us with a historic opportunity as long as we safeguard national security and embrace AI while planning the Northern Metropolis University with foresight. We can ride over the storms and nurture generations after generations of pillars who are patriotic. Next, Mr. Scott Leung. Thank you, Deputy President. I speak in support of the Appropriation Bill 2026. With our operating accounts returning to the black, this budget has showcased the government's spirit in prudent budget management. The government is also sharing the fruits of economic recovery with the larger public. I support the budget. In terms of livelihood issues, I thank the Financial Secretary for accepting my suggestion as well as Mr. Kissing Yang's suggestion to extend tax allowances and also issuing additional month CSSA payments to recipients. And also there will be more tax deduction for childbearing. Now, the government has been promoting retirements in the Bay Area. There will be extension and enhancements to the Guangdong scheme and Fujian scheme. Now, the government can study extending the tax concession arrangements to recognize residential care homes in the Bay Area so as to alleviate financial burden on families and also tying in with our cross-boundary retirement policies. The focus of this budget is the development of Northern Metropolis. National 15 5-year plan supports the rapid development of the Northern Metropolis and also the South-North dual engine layout. Now, we have to unleash the potential of private land, including establishing a park company for the Sentinel Pole. There will be injection of funding into the Hong Kong park. Government's borrowing ceiling has been raised to $900 billion, showing the government's commitments and determination. It is also an active dovetailing of the 5-year plan. The Northern Metropolis is not just a financial project or an IIT project. It is also about living space. There will be 500,000 flats in the area, so living well in the area is important. There will be talent accommodation for INT development and also youth hostel for local and foreign youths to pursue growth in the area. Now, I suggest enhancing the minimum size of flats in Northern Metropolis to create a better living standard. Now, including basic housing units in the next 5 years, there will be 196,000 flat yields for public housing, 80% higher than before. It shows the government's determination to turn around the front-loaded supply of public housing. Now, to speed up delivery of the flats, the government should adopt more technologies. In the past, because of geographical or site survey and unexpected geographical conditions, many projects have to be put on hold, and it led to cost overrun. Now, we should make use of technology in an advanced stage to prevent that from happening. And also with MIC, we can shorten the construction period of public housing. And we can realize our vision faster than expected. In terms of helping residents to move along the housing ladder, there are a number of measures to support young families to become homeowners. They are very well received. However, many people still find the upfront payments or first installment to be overwhelming. So I urge the government to consider allowing MPF account holders to use the accrued benefits on down payments of flats. Now, I understand that this is a retirement pillar, but a flat is also important for retirements. In terms of BHU regulation, the budget has set aside some resources to take forward the enforcement work. Now, I think the government should offer sample flags so that landlords know what the standards are. But I've heard some complaints that some landlords are still unclear about specific details of the law, and they don't know whether their flags for rent are up to standard. So I think there should be more technical support for landlords. There should be a clear explanation to the landlord. Now, with the enforcement period starting soon, there will be higher demand for flags in the urban area, and it would put pressure on the rental market. So the government should make good use of the vacant sites in urban areas. The government should consider whether the building age threshold for redeveloping industrial building should be relaxed. Now, in replying to members' question, the Housing Bureau said that it will continue with the existing program. Now, I hope the government would take tally of the reference gained during the meeting in taking forward the private subsidized sale flat pilot scheme. The private market's power should be harnessed in providing public housing so as to boost the supply and provide a more diverse housing ladder for people. Now, building maintenance projects are a huge problem for many owners. Now, I support enhancing the smart tender and also other pilot schemes related. Many individual flat owners lack the professional knowledge on building maintenance, so smart tender can lower the risk of bid rigging. But I'm worried that before the laws come into place, before the enhancement to smart tender, more owners, corporations, and contractors may rush through the tendering process by harnessing proxies. So I think the government has to be careful about that, and more support should be given to owners' corporations to make full use of the enhanced smart tender to enhance safety of buildings. Now, the government also promised to continue to develop our promenade, including the Kowloon West part. Now, as a member representing the Kowloon West district, I support opening up the coastal areas near the Changsha wholesale market. Now, earlier on, the coffee festival at the Changsha promenade was well received by the residents. It shows that promenade is very valuable in terms of boosting the economy. However, at present, the promenade along the Kowloon West is broken up by various developments. Now, I urge the government to set a timetable for connecting all the promenade from Kowloon West to Kwun Tong, so as to provide quality public facilities as well as boosting the development of the tourism sector. This budget is pragmatic with foresight. I look forward to seeing all the measures implemented in full. I will also cooperate with the executive branch to explain the budget to my constituents. Now, for my suggestions which are not included in the budget, I hope the government will continue to consider them and implement them in the future. Thank you. I so submit I support the Appropriation Bill 2026.
Mr. Chris Ip. Deputy President, we are facing a complicated situation unseen in a century. This budget shows the resolve of the administration. The administration spends within its means. This budget has a vision of a dual engine. It consolidates the foundation of the traditional industries of Hong Kong. However, in other areas such as AI, these emerging industries also receive focuses. That's why I speak in full support of the Appropriation Bill 2026. The Financial Secretary hasn't had an easy task in the past few years. We were affected by land sale program, which has led to 3 years of fiscal deficit amounting to over $100 billion. The administration has been on the same page to attract talent and investment. We have recorded increases in profits tax and stamp duty revenue. The fiscal position of the administration has improved. Mr. Gary Chan, in his speech, referred to a case where 2 members of the public, and I think these cases are heartrending. As President Xi Jinping emphasized, we must stay true to the very reason why we develop society and economy. We need to identify the demands of the public. We need to understand what makes it difficult for them. We need to, as early as possible, remove barrier and streamline administrative procedures. This is how we can create a sense of happiness and well-being for the public. I'm glad to see that the government has been delivering results in the past few years because of proactive and capable governance. The public has been living a better life. They're feeling more and more happy. I believe as long as we continue to develop the economy, we definitely continue to chart a better course. Last year, we saw the heartbreaking typo fire in Wangfuk Court. We need to solve the problems revolving around old buildings, large-scale renovation works. In the second half of this year, the Urban Renewal Authority will launch an enhanced version of Smart Tender. $3 billion have been set aside for the full review of the OBB 2.0, and a new funding scheme will be formulated alongside the funding provision of $300 million for the enhanced version of Smart Tender. I speak in full support of these measures. However, I hope at the same time the government will also review the different building renovation subsidy schemes in effect. We need to solve the hidden dangers of living in Hong Kong in these buildings so that they will have peace of mind. Last week, Ms. Winnie Ho attended the special meeting of the Finance Committee. The Secretary for Housing said that the engineering contractors had really subpar performance, and we need to enhance the vigilance of the administration. Frontline officers as well as high-ranking officials All of them need to take one more step to identify deficiencies in the system. Departments shouldn't work in silos. They need to heed the calls from the public. As long as they respond earlier, this will definitely create a sense of gain and happiness for the public. In this regard, we need to further develop the economy in Hong Kong, and we also need to create an ambience of culture in Hong Kong. This is itself a high value and high return industry. This will in return drive economic development. This will achieve complementarity. Hong Kong is an open and free international cosmopolitan city. In Hong Kong, where East meets the West, we have a rich historical background. Hong Kong has rich cultural and art background. Therefore, under the 15th Five-Year Plan, it expressly supports Hong Kong's development into an international cultural center where East meets West. We need to become a city where the East meets the West and different cultures come together. The Financial Secretary said in this budget that we need to develop Hong Kong into a global high-end art trading hub. And we have already worked out the collaboration arrangement with Art Basel in the coming 5 years. We have also exchanged views and conducted detailed studies on talent training and the promotion of art trading and financing. These measures are important to developing Hong Kong as an international cultural center where the East meets the West. That said, to this end, we need a comprehensive and well-rounded policy. How can we work together with the GBA in the cultural and art sector? How can we enhance collaboration? How can we help different arts and cultures to go global? Some artists with foreign passports face different systemic barriers when they went to the Chinese mainland for shows and performance. This has affected the integrated development of the cultural and performing arts system. I suggest having a whitelist system allowing the mechanism of group in, group out. We need to streamline procedures for short-term shows. This will remove the barriers on law and regulations. This will also create a favorable condition for further collaboration when it comes to arts and performing arts and cultures. And I need to declare that I am the Deputy Chairman of the Art Development Council. I'm responsible for approving different fundings and projects. Our goal is to develop Hong Kong into an international cultural center where East meets West. We need to give the Art Development Council the new position of an intermediary. When different performing groups go to the GBA to put on shows, we need to provide a one-stop shop services, including providing assistance in relation to visas and interfacing arrangements between the groups in Hong Kong and the commercial partners in the Chinese mainland. We need to further enhance the impact of Hong Kong in the GBA when it comes to cultural and arts industries. These have provided greater support to Hong Kong's development into an international cultural center. This year marks the start of the 15th Five-Year Plan of our country. Developing Hong Kong into an international cultural center is not just the mission and responsibility given by our country, but it is also the development direction, and it represents opportunities lying ahead of us. I expect that the government will provide more fundings to promote arts and cultures in Hong Kong. We also hope that laws and regulations barriers will be removed, standing in the development of the local cultural and arts sector. We need a long-term policy in these regards. The 15th Five-Year Plan will help us formulate the first Hong Kong Five-Year Plan. We need to make full preparation for developing Hong Kong into an international cultural center. I so submit I speak in support of the Appropriation Bill 2026. Ms. Judy Chen. Thank you. I speak in support of the Appropriation Bill 2026. The 15th Five-Year Plan is the strategic blueprint of our country. We need to proactively dovetail with our national strategy. We also need to consolidate our strength in relation to international shipping center and financial center. We also need to enhance our position as an international I&T center. This budget ties in very closely with the 15th Five-Year Plan of our country. It is very meaningful. I thank the Financial Secretary for adopting a lot of suggestions proposed by the NPP, New People's Party, especially in relation to the space economy. Under the 15th Five-Year Plan, it mentions developing a strong nation in aeronautics and aerospace. So what can Hong Kong do? We are such a small city. However, we enjoy a lot of advantages. For example, we have financing platforms, R&D development, laws, risk management. All these are the strengths of Hong Kong. We can even help local enterprises and mainland enterprises to go global, thus making even greater contributions to the aerospace sector of our country. In the budget this year, Oasis will take the lead to identify aerospace and aeronautical enterprises to Hong Kong for further development. Aerospace and aeronautical science is a highly specialized area. We do need experts and R&D talent. We cannot just rely solely on the civil service. We need to groom and train relevant talent. We need to attract them to Hong Kong. I hope that the Hong Kong government will continue to identify room to set up an office for aerospace. Is it possible to have a commissioner for aerospace? We need such a commissioner to spearhead the development of aerospace and aeronautical science in Hong Kong. Not only will this attract international talent to Hong Kong for development and collaboration, but at the same time, we can also train local young people to work in the aerospace and aeronautical sectors. This is how we can open up more opportunities for this new industry. Space economy is all about investment, law, data analysis, and so on. Hong Kong is an international financial center. We need to leverage on our role as a superconnector. A lot of aeronautical and aerospace enterprises in the mainland can go global, and this is how we can consolidate our strengths and make greater contributions to our country. We have satellite data, we have different sensing technologies. There is great demand for such infrastructure, and we need to make breakthroughs. Deputy President, turning to recent hot topics in society, in the Middle East, there are conflicts. Oil prices have spiked and fluctuated as a result. At the same time, this has reminded us of the importance and urgency of the popularization of electric vehicles. Hong Kong is becoming a green city. Transportation transformation is an indispensable step. I hope that the Hong Kong government can research into this area. We need to enhance our efforts. Buses, minibuses, how can we help them transform into electric vehicles? We need to help them with transformation. In the budget this year, the 1-for-1 replacement scheme has been halted. I understand why. We need to keep a close eye on the public coffers. We need to decide how to put resources into our initiatives. We need to look into EV 1-for-1 replacement scheme. Is there any room for further relaxation? We need to encourage members of the public to use greener transport in order to reduce carbon emissions. Oil prices have spiked. Members of the public are feeling the pinch. Now they are regretting over the fact that they didn't switch to EVs. In less than 10 years, in 2035, we have the goal of reducing carbon emissions by half. So I believe it is worthwhile to undertake these studies. According to the Tourism Board, in the first quarter of 2026, the number of visitors has increased by 17%, amounting to a total of 14.31 million people. We are seeing more foot traffic in the streets of Hong Kong. Therefore, we need to seize upon this opportunity to give visitors even better experience so that they will tell the good stories of Hong Kong when they return to their own home countries. I'm glad to see in the budget this year, it supports urban-rural integration. This is indeed a correct direction. But there is a heavy focus on the Northern Metropolis. $200 million have been spent on the NM. The policy address mentions that we need to develop tourism, leveraging on the workforce on developing tourism hotspots. We have the Four Mountains tourism. It was mentioned in the policy address, but then the Four Peaks tourism wasn't mentioned by the budget anymore. We need to enhance the ancillary measures and facilities in country parks. We need to have some treetop outreach facilities. We need to have some more museums showcasing historical or historic artifacts. We need to have more campsites. All these are very appealing. On Lantau Island, it boasts very rich natural resources and cultural characteristics. If there is good planning in this regard, we can definitely promote Hong Kong's special characteristics and appeal. I go to Lantau Island very often. There are pavilions on Lantau Islands, but they don't match well with the breathtaking scenery on Lantau Island. The pavilions used to be very beautiful. They were green, however, for the new pavilions, they are grayish. They don't match well with the nature. That's why there's a lot of room for improvement in the countryside. I suggest more resources be dedicated to improving facilities in the countryside. When we tweak the details or when we put in place minor adjustments or refinements, then visitors can feel them. After talking about Four Peaks tourism, let me talk about the harborfront. The Victoria Harbour, especially the side on Hong Kong Island, is indeed what attracts tourists to Hong Kong. We need to spice up the ambience in the Victoria Harbour, and this is exactly how we can enhance the tourism competitive edge. Tourism would not just bring about economic benefits, but it will also foster cultural exchange. We need to keep the international urban charm of Hong Kong. We also need to continue to invest in our tourism infrastructure. This is how we can let visitors feel the top quality urban space in Hong Kong. I'd like to talk about families as well. Families are the cornerstone of society. Population policy shouldn't be just about numbers. It needs to be able to help members of the public to ease pressure. The population structure is facing significant challenges. Especially the middle class, they are facing even greater pressure. The New People's Party is looking into this. The newborn baby bonus has been accepted by the administration. However, can we turn it into a progressive basis? 77% of people surveyed say that they are not going to give birth. So can we consider providing newborn baby bonuses, childbirth allowances, children medical healthcare vouchers? Can we provide even more assistance to families who would like to give birth? In addition to this, the New People's Party also mentioned tax allowances for families engaging domestic helpers. it wasn't adopted by the administration. But I hope that this will be considered further by the administration. I speak in support of the bill. Thank you.
陳文儀議員。
Next, Ms. Grace Chan. Thank you, Deputy President. Given the uncertainties with global economy, I'm of the view that the budget is good enough. We are seeing the reserve of the government bouncing back, and this is a good sign. I'd like to talk about resource allocation today. I'd like to recognize the efforts of the government. Social welfare resources should not be allocated on the basis of cost. We have to look at this from the perspective of manpower capital. This is not a word game. We have to have a paradigm shift in terms of our analysis of public policy. In accordance with the reply given to the members from the administration, we know that there is an increase in the demand of services among elderly. The people benefiting from old age allowance will go up to 910,000 people in 2026-27. This shows that there is an urgency in dedicating more resources to social welfare. By analyzing our policy and social demand, it's how we can prevent the problem from worsening. This is in institutional tools. We see longitudinal research seeing that early intervention and dedicating more resources to social service can lower social costs that cover healthcare, urgent care, or cross or intergenerational poverty. By investing in social welfare today, we can save money over the long term structurally for our public coffer. Given the uncertainties with our economy, we need to have a robust social welfare system that serves as a buffer for our grassroots people. At this time, we shouldn't be cutting back resources dedicated to social welfare. We need to instead invest in elderly care, rehabilitation, family care, or even community development. We need to adopt a risk-based approach to make sure that public money is spent well and fairly. Now, looking at the statistics offered by the government and their reply, we see that there is still a gap in supply and demand. For hostels for people with medium intellectual disability, the waiting time is as long as 145 months. That's over 12 months. If you look at this from the perspective of economy, the long waiting time means that the carer need to be forced out of the labor market. The cost incurred is high. At the same time, social hidden cost of a carer is involved. So as we cut back on resources dedicated to social welfare, we need to adopt risk assessment. I'd like to quote some figures to illustrate the difficulties faced by the social welfare sector. In early 2026, our reserve was as high as $679.3 billion. The operating account is stabilizing. Despite that, the social welfare sector need to abide by the productivity enhancement program. They need to cut their resources by 8% altogether. According to the information from the media or the sector, there is discrepancy in the level of cut among institutions of different scales. For small and medium institutions in 2026-27, they cut their resources by 1%. For large-scale institutions, they cut it by 3%. So if you're talking about the entire sector, starting from 2022, we were forced to cut back on our spending. This directly affect the operation capabilities of small and medium organizations. After the budget was delivered, the administration has taken on board my suggestions. They have exempted the subvented organizations from cutting back on spending with regards to the Jockey Club Trust Fund and the other 3 government funds. This has enhanced the flexibility of small and medium organizations in using their resources. President, this should only be our first step, but not the last one. I have 3 concrete suggestions. First, as we adjust the productivity enhancement program, we need to adopt a cost and demand-based approach. We need to be targeted. We need to have regards to the scope of service offered by different organizations. Different institutions may have different level of reserve, so we need to tie the level of cut with the scale of the institutions. Second, we need to have an alert system. When the reserve of an institution fall below, say, 3 months of operation expenses, the government need to provide support. There has to be, say, transitional allocation or delay of the cut so that the core services offered by these organizations will not be undermined because of financial reasons. Third, we need to introduce a tiered-based management framework. The declaration requirements for large, small, and medium organizations should be different so that there will not be excessive compliance costs on small institutions. That's the ratio principle we talk about in public administration. We need to support elderly and disabled people as well as their carers. The government rolled out the 24-hour carer hotline as at end January 2026. 146,000 calls were received, and we have successfully referred 3,900 cases. So the high number of calls show that there is clear pressure faced by carers. Given the statistics, it will help us plan better in the future. Here, I am sure that we understand that we're talking about livelihood here, but I think that we need to adopt technology as well. In the budget, there's many chapters on technology, on artificial intelligence, and we are also going to spend $100 million to accelerate the transformation of AI. The welfare sector is very much willing to make use of technology. Although the AI R&D and application does not cover our sector, but we're willing to participate. Our sector is faced with digital transformation as well, and there is urgent need for us to adopt technology. And I hope that in the next appropriation bill, the following 3 areas will be covered. First, electronic logistics platform that help trade deliver food or medication. We need a professional electronic logistics system that help us save manpower and deliver these products to elderly that live in remote areas. Second, service users information system. We need to make use of big data for long-term planning. This can enhance resource allocation and make it more scientific. The administration is now building a system to support carers. This is a great start. We need to have more departments take part in it. Third, we need AI to assist in decision-making with frontline officers. We need AI tools to help us assess service demand. This will help us enhance our autonomy. President, I hope that we can improve our long-term planning in terms of our service. And we need to adopt a data-based, risk-based approach. Thank you, President. I so submit I hope to draw people's attention to the data and the questions that have not been answered, as well as our future planning. Thank you. Mr. Eric Yim. President, in the budget delivered, I understand that the administration is exercising financial discipline. Given the heightened geopolitical tensions, we are to dovetail with national development. We need to continue to develop our economy. Over the past year, the Hong Kong economy showed resilience. Our GDP grew by 3.5%. There is surplus with the government's operating account. This shows that given the support of our country, Hong Kong is playing the role as a superconnector, promoting the upgrade and transformation of industries. This year's budget confirmed that INT is the core engine for Hong Kong's future growth. We are increasing our investment in AI, life and health science, and promoting traditional industries to upgrade and transform. This shows that the government adopt a result-oriented approach in administration. Given our tight budget, the budget insists on investing in infrastructures relating to INT, nurturing of talent, and transformation or commercialization of R&D outcome. This lays a solid foundation for Hong Kong to enhance international competitiveness. In the special FC meeting, I talked about how we can further empower the Hong Kong Investment Corporation, and I hope that the government will improve the long-term investment strategies of Hong Kong IC screen projects so that we can develop INT in a more diversified manner. Given the complicated geopolitical landscapes, we need to keep a clear mind, and we need to stay resilient. Under the principle of administration-led, I think that the government should try to achieve breakthrough and innovation. Our country have officially published the 15th five-year plan. This poses a major historical opportunities for our Hong Kong SAR government. We are going to have our own five-year plan soon. This year marks the start of the 15th five-year plan. We need to plan ahead. We need to make sure that there is convergence of standards and rules, and we need to have cross-boundary infrastructures within the Greater Bay Area. Given the recent wars staged by the U.S., there is urgent need for us to transform and upgrade industries. As long as we develop green and emerging industries, we can contribute to our country's high-quality development. Mr. Xia Baolong said recently that our country wants the industrial and commercial sector, as well as entrepreneurs, to continue to play the role in developing our economy. Now, in terms of support of real economy, the sector that I represent have been operating business in Hong Kong for many years. We have great experience in running emerging business and land development. So we are ready to support the government in offering financing platform for R&D and expand use cases to create high-value job opportunities. At the same time, now in terms of green finance and cross-boundary convenience, we are going to promote mutual markets and expand the issuance of green bonds to help local enterprises go for green transformation. I hope that the government will encourage mainland enterprises to participate in the development of green industry. Say, for example, IPAC 2 battery plant. Northern Metropolis is the greatest engine for development, and it is a key to develop this north-south engine of INT and finance. I think that the government should build a platform and encourage the business sector to invest in the Northern Metropolis. We are going to enact the dedicated legislation for the Northern Metropolis very soon. I hope that we are going to achieve more breakthroughs, remove barriers, and pilot new model at the Northern Metropolis without affecting our employment market. We can learn from what we have during COVID with the isolation hospital to build as many buildings as soon as possible. We can adopt the mainland standards so that we can allow enterprises to establish presence sooner, such that we can pull together more top-notch talents and enterprises in the celebration of our 30th anniversary of our reunification. I support the passage of this appropriation bill so that we can adopt a more innovative mindset to develop our economy. This will help us achieve our goals. Thank you.
Next, Ms. Vivian Kong. Thank you, President. This year's budget has proposed a series of innovative and pragmatic measures. This shows the government's philosophy of helping with people's livelihood and maintaining our resilience against the global complex landscape. This budget is closely aligned with Hong Kong's positioning, and it actively responds to the concerns of the community. According to the budget, in 2026, the economy in Hong Kong is expected to grow by 2.5 and 3.5%. This also shows that we are considering the global challenges and also the advantages that we enjoy. In the first 2 months of this year, the retail sector recorded a 12% growth. This shows good local spending situation, but in light of external uncertainty, we need to be very careful. Now, tourism is a major economic pillar in Hong Kong, so its performance and outlook are of utmost importance. In 2025, we received 50 million visitors with total spending at $217.4 billion. In 2026, in the first quarter, we received over 14 million visitors. It's expected that by the end of the year, this figure will reach 53.8 million. That's an 8% increase. $1.66 billion have been set aside for the Hong Kong Tourism Board to develop the initiatives. That's an increase of 34.5%. $200 million will be allocated to the Rural Urban Integration Fund. $1.2 billion will be set aside for the sports portion of the Arts and Sports Development Fund. There are also $9 billion put in to support film development. Now, we need to inject new impetus to promote high-quality development in Hong Kong. There are challenges and opportunities. Tourism's industry bears the brunt when it comes to external headwinds. Now, oil prices have soared because of geopolitical tensions in the Middle East, with reduced flights and increase in fuel costs. We have less incentive to travel. At the same time, this poses pressure on airline companies and travel agents. Now, in light of the fluctuations in the market, I hope that the government and the sector will closely communicate, and the government will roll out targeted support measures to provide a buffer for the industry to tackle soaring oil prices. In fact, recently, our international airport has won another major award, and it shows our leading position as an international aviation hub. The Hong Kong International Airport contributes significantly to the tourism industry. It's not just transport infrastructure. It brings in visitors, and it also drives the growth of other industries. Now, the third runway system gives a boost to tourism in Hong Kong, and it also provides a major source for overnight visitors to come and spend more money. The government should work with the tourism industry and develop tourism resources in Lantau. There should be enhanced transport connectivity, and we must be the super connector. But more than that, we need to be able to attract transit passengers to stay here and spend the money. We need to actively dovetail with the mainland policies on foreigners visa-free arrangements so as to promote Hong Kong as a hub. Now, the budget also proposes integration of culture and tourism as well as high value-added tourism. This will help bolster Hong Kong's status as an international tourism hub and Asia's capital. But we need to tackle the problem of manpower. In 2028, it's expected that the manpower shortfall will reach 9,000 to 14,000. The government should allocate resources to provide training to practitioners. We should also explore measures to attract new blood to the industry. That includes innovative tourism products. We need to encourage the tourism industry to upgrade and transform so that we take a service-oriented approach. Now, we also rely on language in order to step up communication and build trust. In 2025, there's been an apparent increase in visitors from non-English markets such as Vietnam, Middle East, Japan and Korea. 80% of licensed tour guides in the Hong Kong provide services in Cantonese and Putonghua, and we are short of English-speaking tour guides. So in terms of local training, relevant courses should be provided. And in terms of admission policies, we should attract students from the neighboring regions to study here. We should relax the visa requirement for people who'd like to take up jobs in the tourism industry here in order to replenish the workforce. According to data in 2025, about 1/4 of overnight visitors came to Hong Kong to explore the nature trails and local culture. So ecotourism is a major attraction. We are one of the few cities in the world which possesses natural landscape as well as cityscape, and we have very good transport connectivity. This is our strong point. Now, at the moment, there are tourist attractions with poor transport connection. The government should focus on these ecotourism attractions and enhance the facilities and transport connection. Subsidies should be provided. At the same time, training and incentive schemes should be rolled out to groom more talents in ecotourism. We need to build the eco IP for Hong Kong so as to build a good circle. Now, we need to invest in the future, and that means investing in the tourism industry, because we shouldn't just look at the figures. Tourism industry benefits a number of areas such as education, people's livelihood, and the environment. It also creates tens of thousands of jobs. In the long term, we enhance the city's competitiveness. It's also how we showcase our soft power. The government should, in a more systemic manner, collect statistics and publish them so as to gauge the return rate of major events. And in light of a change in circumstances and keen competition from the region, more resources should be deployed, and there should also be policy support to tap new markets so as to build the Hong Kong tourism brand. We should also dovetail with the country's development strategy so that we can be the gateway and the super connector so that the tourism industry can continue to contribute to economic recovery and benefit people's livelihood. I support the budget. Thank you. Mr. Augustine Wong. Thank you, President. I support this budget. This budget is a comprehensive one. It also caters for the need of the local circumstances, especially the needs of different sectors in the community at different stages. One of the highlights in this budget is that we managed to reverse the deficit. Now, for consecutive years, we recorded deficits in the public coffers, but according to the revised estimates, we recorded $2.9 billion of surplus, and it is expected that $11.9 billion of surplus will be put on record in 2026-27. That shows the government's fiscal position is becoming stable, and that will send a positive message to the market. Now that the fiscal position is less tight, the government should grasp opportunities and invest more in the future. Now, I'm very concerned, and I support the development of Northern Metropolis. I always urge the government to expedite the development as quickly as possible. Now, for example, we should adopt the development concept of this 1.5. And I thank the government for accepting my suggestion to expedite the development in a 2.0 model. There is also the Northern Metropolis University Town. 3 sites in Hung Shui Kiu, Hachun, NDAs will be set aside for the University of Applied Sciences to apply for the construction of campuses. $10 billion will be set aside to provide loans for the purpose. Now, the vision of Northern Metropolis is to build an international R&T city. At the same time, we groom talents in the university towns, and this will help promote Hong Kong as an international post-secondary education hub and a hub for high-caliber talents. This, if we give priority to the university town, this will provide good foundation for the future development of I&T. Now, but I'm concerned about the $10 billion fund for universities to take out loans, because not all universities have sufficient means to take forward development of such a scale. So I believe the government should roll out another subsidy scheme to provide a stronger support to the relevant universities. Now, we are saving for the rainy days when it comes to the Northern Metropolis, and at the moment, the government has started its work in attracting interested enterprises to set up presence here. In recent years, the Government Property Agency has begun to buy in properties. I think that if these properties are procured at a reasonable level, we should optimize their use and provide short-term tenancies to the I&T enterprises as a start for them to get to adapt to the local environment and be prepared for Northern Metropolis in the future. We should also create more I&T scenarios. Now, however, when it comes to development, construction manpower is the bottleneck. According to the manpower projection report published by the CIC this month, it is expected that with increase in volume in the coming 5 years, overall speaking, we are short of skilled or semi-skilled workers. We're also short of supervisory professionals, and the situation is getting worse. Take professionals in the construction industry as an example. The CIC estimates 1,500 to 2,000 gap in this year. By 2030, this manpower shortfall will increase to 5,500 to 6,000. I thank the government for responding to this issue in the budget. $65 million have been set aside to increase training quotas from 172 to 260. I think this, along with other training schemes, can help build a talent pool and which will help us cope with manpower demands in the future. Now, the sector has also told me that they'd like the government to step up support for SMEs to adapt and adopt the BIM technology. The government at the moment provides subsidies and the relevant assistance to help them procure and upgrade and transform. However, for SMEs, there is a high turnover rate. Some staff members may have undergone training, but then they may leave the company, and that means the newcomer will need to receive training again. That in turn adds to the cost of training. I hope the government can look into the situation and allocate more resources. Now, the other point is about a measure to generate revenue. That is for luxury homes over $100 million. The stamp duty rate will increase from 4.25% to 6.5%. Now, the sector has expressed concerns, although the government explains that this affects only 0.3% of the total transaction in the market. It is still a misleading message, and the sector and the public may be misled. And if the market warms up again, will there be other measures that would affect the market development? Now, for family offices, there are also two measures, but I don't think that they are effective enough. According to the government, these two measures will only generate about $1 billion of revenue. I believe that with the market cycle going up again, the government will receive more revenue through land sale, and I believe by then we'll be able to get a bigger profit. Now, when it comes to redevelopment, private developers tend to consider not the number of units acquired, but the total amount. If it exceeds $100 million, then it will be regarded as a transaction, and that the highest stamp duty rate of 6.5% will apply. Now, I thank the government for agreeing to follow up on the matter. It is not the government's intention to affect redevelopment of aged buildings, and I thank the government for taking up on my suggestion and making adjustments to the policy. The other concern from the sector is the construction project volume. In the next financial year, the allocation to the Capital Works Reserve Fund will go up. But in recent years, along with other members, we have been following up on a substantial drop in funding for projects under Head 703. For example, this year, this amount only reached $3.1 billion. That's a 21% cut from the $4 billion funding received in the previous years. And this sparks concern from the industry. We're not sure whether this is a cyclical issue. And there are also project delays, which has caused project costs to go up. I appreciate that the government goes by the established funding principle, but I hope that the government will listen to the voices of our industry and make sure that projects are rolled out in a steady manner so as to increase market predictability and address the issue of uncertainty. This can help lift the sector out of the plight. Finally, I'd like to talk about redevelopment and building maintenance. Now, when in 2023, when the government amended the relevant legislation for compulsory land sale, it was said that there were 9,600 buildings in Hong Kong over the age of 50, and it is expected that the number would continue to go up. And I think the government should therefore consider allocating more resources to help owners undertake building management and repair. I know that this is a systemic problem, and we need to tackle, for example, bid rigging and other problems in the monitoring regime. I hope that in next year's budget, there will be more support for owners to fulfill their responsibility of building maintenance. And the government replied to members' question in the special FC sessions that the Housing Bureau's ICU is responsible for the mandatory building and window inspection projects. There are 500,000 buildings over the age of 30 among 980,000, but only 18 such buildings were included in the scope of the mandatory schemes. Now, in light of the Wenford Court fire and the casualties, we should improve the manpower ratio. I so submit.
Next, Mr. Chen Chou-Kwong. Thank you. I first would like to thank the FS as well as the government for their hard work. We know that the government is facing great fiscal challenge. In order to restore fiscal balance, as well as to make sure that there are investments in future, it is hard for us to strike a balance. My overall comment is that the budget is a pragmatic one, but on compassion for members of the public as well as on policy coordination, there is room for improvement. In order to benefit our citizens, I have the following suggestions. First, in recent years, the government has been promoting retirement in the GBA, and therefore it has expanded the elderly healthcare voucher scheme as well as the Guangdong and Fujian schemes so that elderly from Hong Kong could retire in the GBA. I support these measures. However, we also see that these policies are not in line with our tax measures. For children who make arrangements for their parents to retire in the GBA, if their parents cannot stay in Hong Kong for more than 180 days, their children cannot get the dependent parent allowances. Children have to take up the responsibility to take care of their parents, and that's understandable. However, their burden would not lessen just because their parents decide to retire in the GBA. Well, these schemes help reduce the healthcare burden. However, for these middle-class children, they feel very helpless. I hope that the government could take on board our suggestions and review the tax measures by exempting the geographical restriction of the tax allowances. And this will help further promote retirement in the GBA. This is a very compassionate measure. Second, on the allocation of resources to mega event economy as well as INT, well, this is a move to further promote our economy. However, we should not neglect the pain that are being experienced by our citizens. For the middle class with high interest rate as well as with the burden to take care of their children, well, we aren't offering much support to them in terms of our healthcare policies. So they are facing great pressure. For the grassroots, we have the community living room scheme. However, there aren't enough support for them still. For us to revive the macro economy, I think it takes time. In the meantime, we hope that the government, in managing the public finances in the future, it could take into consideration the needs of the middle class. The government should be more sensitive and provide immediate and flexible support for the middle class so that members of the public could feel that the government is riding out the storms with them. In terms of healthcare and elderly care, the government is bringing in talents as well as rolling out cross-boundary healthcare measures, and this helps alleviate the manpower crunch, and this deserves our recognition. However, this is only helping us to fight for time. Currently, the waiting time for public hospitals, specialist patient, outpatient services is still very long. As for elderly who are aging at home, they are facing great mental pressure as well. I hope the government could make sure that resources could be brought down to the community level. For example, there should be a flexible daycare nursing services so that we can transform our resources to safeguards and protection for our citizens. Now I'd like to turn to education. The government is expanding the scale of high-end education, and it is relaxing the restrictions for local schools to admit non-local students, and this helps us become more competitive. However, the nature of education is that we want lives to influence other lives. Our local primary and secondary school teachers are working to adapt to the demographic changes given the decline of student population. They are also preparing themselves for AI education. I hope that the government could give more care and support to our teachers. For example, relevant administrative procedures should be streamlined. There should be more support for teachers to pursue further studies. It is only by providing a healthy environment for our teachers that we can ensure quality education for our next generation. When we think about distribution of resources, we should not neglect our civil service. Our civil servants over the past few years faced challenges at times during COVID. They also faced challenges to revive our economy. They've been helping us draw for talents, and they have helped roll out community support. They show that they are highly professional, and they have been working hard in their own positions. I understand that the government has to be prudent in managing its public finances. However, civil servants are facing challenges with the high inflation rate. Reasonable pay rise adjustment for civil service is a recognition for their work. It is also to help ensure civil service morale, and this would help recruit excellent talents to join the civil service. I hope that the government could consider economic indicators as well as its fiscal position, and at the same time give compassion to the civil servants and resume the regular pay adjustment for civil servants so that civil servants could serve the public with a peace of mind. President, a good budget does not only cover reasonable figures, but should also demonstrate passion and care for the public. I agree that the government should be prudent in managing its finances, but on the micro level, for tax measures such as dependent parent allowances, they should be adjusted. And also, in terms of the treatment and remuneration for civil servants, there should be greater flexibility as well as empathy. I think if we could go further and listen to the public's views more, we could definitely undergo a successful economic restructuring. Thank you. Next, Mr. Tommy Chung. I suppose